Yeah, no, like I was saying off the record, the suits were before the podcast. I decided to do the suits. First of all, I don't always do them, right? Like there's some guests where it's like, I'm not doing it for that one. Or Kyle Watson, I wore a gi. You know what I mean? Or if I'm intimidated by the guest, honestly, like when Vaghi was doing it, I was like, I'm not gonna roll up in a 3-piece with Rodrigo Vaghi. Like, fucking grab my tie and choke me with it. But it's also like a status thing. I want this to be seen as professional. And I want it to be seen as professional from multiple angles. For you, the guest, I want you to know that you're in a studio, we have the equipment, we put in the effort to do this right. And then I also want the viewer to know that, like, I'm taking this seriously. I'm not showing up in my pajamas or anything like that. Is it overkill? Absolutely. But I don't believe you can overdress for anything. You can only underdress. So that's my 2 cents.
Well, first of all, no, it's not overkill at all, my man. You got the whole Bruce Buffer appeal. And no, but like kind of what you said, it has to do with professionalism. Bruce Buffer takes his job super serious, man.
Dude, did you watch the fights last night with his tux? That boy crushes it every night. He has a new tux for every card. Do you know that? He buys a new tux for every pay-per-view.
Every time he crushes it. And I look at Mariah, and every time I see him come out and he's about to start screaming, I'm like, check out Bruce's suit. Like,
you know, it's so crazy. Him and Mike Buffer, the boxing announcer, were brothers and didn't even know it until later on in life.
I didn't know that they didn't know it. That's kind of crazy.
They met, and then like they met through work because even though brothers, right? Completely different walks of life, yet what they did for work was very similar. Bruce was more on the MMA side, Mike was more on the boxing side. Let's get ready to rumble. It's time. And then Bruce was actually, once they got like intertwined and then they started talking a little bit and they're like, wait, you were born when and where? And you don't remember your parents, you know what I mean? So like they kind of started linking the stories together, did a genealogy test, found out that they were like long lost brothers. And then Bruce actually started helping Mike with like the business side because Let's Get Ready to Rumble is now trademarked because Bruce was like, hey, that thing you're saying, you need to trademark that so that when anyone ever says it ever, they have to pay you a royalty. Fun fact, that was the start of that, was Bruce Buffer. And now every announcer has to have like a new, like, I can't go in the ring and be like, it's time. Bruce Buffer will sue the shit out of me. I can't say, hey, let's get ready to rumble. Mike Buffer will sue the shit out of me. Every announcer has like their one thing, like, are you ready? Like whatever it is. Yeah, welcome to America.
First of all, yeah, back to the professionalism. You are such a pro because, and that's why I love your show, man. I feel like I always learn something, man, because you're just so in depth with the knowledge and everything that, you know, and despite the suits being awesome, the talk is awesome. I can't get over the suits. And I can't get over the fact we already talked about this, about how we're almost matching.
Yeah, I know. It was when I saw you get out of the car, I was like, oh shit, did he see me before?
Did you see all the trash fall out of the car when I got out?
No, dude.
I don't know this way. I feel I'm kind of like embarrassed, man, because I'm just looking at the suit and these nice shoes, man, and I'm like, bro, looking at my shoes,
dude,
I'm just like, oh
I don't tell anybody how to dress on the pod. Mike Rogers shows up in like Crocs and like shorts. I'm like,
who's gonna tell?
Come on in, yeah. Who's gonna tell Mike you got to dress up?
That behemoth.
The other thing too is like, if you get like suits and stuff like that, like for me, it's easy to find clothes that fit me. When you're 6'4", 320 pounds, you don't just walk into a place and they got jackets your size. You know what I mean? So
no, not at all. Shoot, you can't even get a size 13 in some places, and it sucks. You know, even being long and skinny has its disadvantages.
Yeah, your frame?
Yeah, unfortunately. It's like you got like almost a 28-inch waist, but you need like a 36 long.
Every guy is going to be listening to this like, fuck you, Tivon. Because for those that don't know, for those of you that are blind or only listening to the audio, Tivon is built like Black Adonis. It's insane.
Allah Akbar. Thank you, dog. I've been getting good compliments this week. I'm not going to lie. Somebody told me that my beard looked nice, and I have one of those Kevin Durant issues.
It comes in patchy. You make it work?
Comes in patchy. They say, it's like, your beard looks good, man. Oh, this is actually at Disney World. Then I looked at him, and I was like, you just going to sit here and lie to me in front of these kids?
I got a buddy, his name is Matt, and for the longest time he couldn't grow a beard, or at the very least he would come in patchy, and he now realizes that like, I don't need to grow in the beard. I just need to trim it to a way that like makes it look good for me.
That's what I tell Mariah, my wife. I tell her all the time. I was like, listen, you're going to stop volumizing my beard to make it look, what is this? You ever see that where you see a guy with a fluffy beard? You're just
There's a whole market for it, dude. Yeah. They have like the rollers and the creams and shit. It's like, brother, if it's not there, it's not there.
I need it to look nappy, 300 Leonidas with the arrows in his chest. you know, and he was sitting there like, oh, my wife. That's how I needed pointed at the bottom. I didn't even say Pharaoh Tivon.
I will say this. I never got to sit down and talk with you before this podcast, but I did watch your podcast with Zach and Pat. And
shout out ZP.
Yeah. First of all, Goku was a great father. Second of all,
okay.
One of the things
we're about to spend 2 hours.
I know, right? We're gonna argue about it. One of the things that kind of surprised me was like your sense of humor and everything, considering your walk of life, right? Like as a fighter, I know that we all come from different walks of life, and some of us are eccentric, some of us are more stoic, what have you. Your personality did not fit your frame to me. Like when I saw you before I ever got to talk to you, I had an idea of what you would be like, right? And then to hear you, I was like, holy shit, was that a left turn? Did not see that coming at all. Well, do you get that often?
I do, actually. And I don't know if you've ever seen Terry Crews talk about it. He had kind of addressed a similar issue because they were like, man, you're this big guy, but you're kind of a softie. But then it got to the point to where he got pushed, and then it was like he had to express to people, he's like, you know.
Don't fuck with me.
Yeah, don't fuck with me. And I'm not one of those. I'm not particularly, let's say, quote unquote, one of those guys that people would say he's a tough guy. That's something that people have given to me, you know, without me even saying anything to them. And I just sat here and called the guy a bad father. But again, I have to give props to our main man, Goku, because he has been a big, you know, factor in the development of my personality. Because when I was a kid watching him, his lightheartedness is what made it more exciting to see him go through his hardship. And sitting here talking about Goku like he's Jesus Christ. Also Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ was a lighthearted person. You know what I mean? In some contexts of the Bible, it was like he could see the future. He knew who was going to betray him, and he would lightheartedly welcome them to their redemption, even though he knew they would not take it. And it's kind of the same thing. It's like life is, you know, you can believe it's short. You can believe this is the only one you have, or you can believe in reincarnation. But either way, it's rare. And if you're a rude person or just not a genuinely nice person, or if you just don't enjoy life, you know what I mean? It's kind of like just disrespectful to existence in general. Like,
just wanted to take a second to pause the action and just tell you guys, thank you so much for consuming our content. Easy Talk is a passion project. This podcast is just a bunch of like-minded people coming together to produce some cool stuff and talk to some cool people. One of the things I would very much appreciate is if you could possibly like the video or subscribe to the channel, just because it helps us in the algorithm and ultimately to grow, to get more exposure to everybody, including ourselves, and ultimately just make a better product. Take a second. I'd greatly appreciate it, and on with the show.
I don't know, man.
I agree with everything that you just said. I just don't fault people for having some of these, like, what I would call sins, because I too was young and dumb. And you know, when I was younger, not so much now, because I'm more cognizant of it and I actively try to like suppress some of these urges. But like when I was younger, I was a victim of jealousy. I was a victim of envy. I was a victim of wrath.
Me too.
And I think this is like the natural progression of all men, right? The difference between intelligence and wisdom is I knew a whole lot even back then, but I didn't have the wisdom to act on it or to really like objectively view it for what it was. I would kind of create, I'm not jealous, you know, I'm giving them their kudos. No, I was jealous of somebody, you know what I mean? And I shouldn't be jealous of people. Like what they have is what they have. They worked for it. They acquired that. I can admire someone for their successes, but I should not be jealous. I should not want what they have. That's what they worked for. I should want what I have. I should want for more that I create. That's kind of like a small subsect of what we were trying to talk about. But furthermore, as I got older, I got better and better mentors. And mentors aren't necessarily like people that you necessarily have to have in front of you. A mentor could be someone that you're reading about. Like if you're reading the Bible and reading about Jesus Christ. A mentor could be something as stupid as a video game character that you resonate with a lot of the choices that they're making and whatever narrative that's being created, or a fucking anime cartoon.
God of War.
Yeah, right?
I love the God
Kratos,
of War series.
Goku. I saw this meme that was hilarious. I was like, adulthood is like when you're a kid, you want to be Goku, but you realize you're growing up to be Vegeta. I got the Widow's Peak and everything.
Well, yeah, Widow's Peak aside, Vegeta's
he's the most human character.
His character development is the most relatable because
for fighters,
he's lost. You know what I mean? Undefeated is untested.
Vegeta is the MMA fighter personified.
Yeah.
Coming in, hungry, young, no responsibility, no family, no nothing, only wants to fight, only wants to battle and win and be the best.
Of worlds.
Gets humbled, then starts teaming up with people to really bring out his full potential. Once he gets to that point, he gets to the point where he's always to, I want to say soften up, because you overcome adversity. Now times of peace come. What do you do in times of peace? You grow and prosper. He gets a wife, a kid, and all this stuff, and then he gets soft. That was that whole Majin saga. Ooh, yeah. Everyone's gonna be like, "What the fuck are you guys talking about?" If you don't know about this,
they know it.
If you don't know about this, watch Dragon Ball Z. You're welcome. It's one of the best like animes that have ever existed. It's in the top 3 easily, and probably the best Shonen Jump,
except for Super.
I don't like Super.
I hate it.
I like DBZ. I don't like GT. Toriyama. Yeah, I don't like GT. I don't even like Daima.
You didn't like GT?
No, I didn't like
think
GT.
The Truffles having a beef
the
with the Saiyans?
Yeah.
I call them the Truffles.
Some of the stories made sense. I just fucking hate filler. And it's funny that I say that about Dragon Ball Z because it was all filler. No, but Dragon Ball Z, from the animation to the storyline and everything, maybe it's also like rose-tinted goggles because I was a kid, right? Maybe. But nothing after has really done it for me. There have been moments where I was like, that's the DBZ of old, like Jiren versus Goku, Ultra Instinct and all that. I was like, okay, now you guys are starting to scratch that itch a little bit. Money. Yeah, get to that shit. I don't, you know, I'm not a big, also power levels need to matter, or else if they don't matter, then they don't matter. Right? So like,
it's the most obscure scaling.
Yeah, it's the fucking weirdest thing, man. And and these power jumps in the middle of fights, not dude, we're getting nerdy. But listen, you have to make it make sense. Yeah, if you can't allow me to nerd out, then I'm not going to nerd out. Then you're not going to have me. Well, so no, DBZ was it, and everything after that hasn't done it for me.
I understand, man, and you know, first of all, there's nothing wrong with nerding out, brother. You know, the fact that you can find like I said, inspiration.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. Storytelling, everything from it. That's the human experience.
It's also very entertaining. It's just a good product.
Very entertaining. So I think people who don't even give it a try are missing out on something. So.
Whenever women used to like bag on me or rag on me for like liking World of Warcraft or watching anime or doing any of the stuff that I was doing, I'd be like, what do you watch? What do you do? Keeping Up with the Kardashians, Sunset Hills bullshit real estate stuff? Like, this is what you like. I'm not going to poo-poo on that.
Yeah.
Enjoy your retardation as much as you want. Let me enjoy mine.
But you said you weren't going to poo-poo on it.
Yeah. Well, I called mine as, you know, the same.
You used the R word.
Yeah, well, you know, Trump's back in office, baby. We're back.
Let's go. Did you see Dave's SNL monologue
Dave
last
Chappelle?
night? He had a new one.
He had a new monologue last night?
It was so funny. They added it on YouTube 8 hours ago. I didn't watch it.
I need to watch it now. Why, was it good?
It was outstanding. Dave is just such a comedic genius to me, man. And
he's the GOAT.
He's not even over the top. It's just subtle nuances. It was funny. Like,
he doesn't even do comedy. He does storytelling with like jabs. Like, here's a story. Like, you're talking about George Floyd and like the knee on the neck, and then boom, jab. Now I'm like laughing. I'm like, oh shit, shouldn't be laughing, but jab, jab, jab. And then at the end, he ends with like a poignant line of like, this is fucked up.
He somehow made the fires going on in LA funny. That's all I'm gonna say about it. He did give Jimmy Carter a nice send off too, though.
Did he?
It's pretty. Yeah, Jimmy Carter got big love on the show. You'll like it when you watch it.
Interesting.
Jimmy Carter was
considering his historical representation of him. Here's what I'm going to say about the presidency before we even go down this path. Mm-hmm. I think it's an impossible job. I think it's an impossible job to like truly be seen as victorious in the eyes of all, right? Even in the eyes of the majority. Because now with like this polarized nation that we have, if you go left, right is going to be like, what the hell? And if you go right, left is going to be like, what the hell? And I've seen it in real time where people now are more concerned with Donald Trump's failures, or I'll even not even, when Biden got in office, okay, I didn't vote for him, but you want to know what I wanted? I wanted him to succeed, because his success is my success, and his failures will be my failures, right? So like, even though I didn't vote for him, I genuinely wanted him to be a great president. I genuinely wanted him to have a great cabinet. I genuinely wanted for peace and prosperity for all. So like, my guy lost, cool, but I still want the winner to succeed. I feel like when Donald Trump, I know a lot of people, and I've spoken to a lot of people that are left-leaning, the notion or like some of the thought that I'm getting from this is they want him to fail in spite of themselves.
Yeah.
Like they're fine with lesser if that means he's wrong. And I'm like, this is
sore
so
losers,
stupid.
man.
I don't even know if it's sore losers, because they didn't even lose.
But it's how far do we take it in our own mentality? Because again, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, they didn't even lose, but people who take it to as far as like saying like, I'm gonna stop talking to my family because they voted for Trump, or I'm gonna do this and that. You might have went through your entire life playing video games or playing tic-tac-toe or Foursquare and basketball, and you've lost games and you've taken it very well. But as soon as it came to this, you revealed that you were human after all, and you lost. You felt you felt that you were like, I feel like all the stuff that I don't want's gonna happen. It just, and you showed, that you're kind of shitty at it. And
I just don't understand where this correlation between like your self-identity is so intertwined with your politics. Like, it used to be that you negotiated or you discussed or you debated like topics. You didn't debate a person, right? It was like, gay marriage, yes or no, why? Legal age of drinking, this age, that age, why, right? Insert whatever it is, abortion, yes or no, why? You would debate like the topic, the issue, and then you would kind of deep dive into that. Now, I think what is happening, and I'm trying to deduce this. I think it's two things. Let me know if you think I'm wrong. Number one, it's a perversion of information to make everyone think they're smarter than they actually are, because they're being constantly bombarded with like 45-second little clips and stuff like that of like this topic, and that thing might like kind of assimilate with their narrative or their worldview, so it only strengthens the way they think, right? Like, so I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm not for abortion, I'm pro-life, okay? And then like, because of the algorithm on my social media, I'm constantly getting bombarded with a lot more conservative stuff than liberal stuff. I'm gonna kind of only get this echo chamber mentality of like, oh yeah, well, like this person agrees with me, and this person agrees with me, and this person had a great point that agrees with me. How could I be wrong when everyone around me is agreeing with me?
Is agreeing that you're right.
Exactly. Yeah. So then they start to think that like, and this is where I come up with the term lazy intellectuals, where they're not necessarily understanding why they think what they think. They just think something because it's being reciprocated by their immediate vicinity, aka echo chambers. And this is why so many people will sit there and make a comment or whatever, but then if I offer them to be on a podcast to debate me, I have not had one single person accept. Not for crypto, not for education, not for any of the myriad topics that I came in and I'm like, this is my stance, this is what I think, crypto's stupid, here's why. If you want to come down and sit and talk with me about it, I'd be more than happy to have you. Can't get a single person. Education is fundamentally broken. I would like to sit here and talk about public education with someone in the field. Cannot get a single person to talk to me about it. Why? Because they don't know why they think what they think. They've either just been like, or they're not as educated as they think they are. And then when presented with like, like a fight, for instance, right? Like everyone thinks they're a fighter until you just offer them a fight. And then it's like, oh, well, the date doesn't work for me or the venue doesn't work for me. They'll find certain outs. It's the same thing with everybody else. You get chin checked. That's number one. Is like this inability to get chin checked, the increase of lazy intellectuals and echo chamber thought. Number two is the monetization of grifting. There is money to be made in anger. And being the neutral party, being Switzerland, is just not as lucrative as being a Tim Pool, as being a Patrick Bet-David, as being a Phil Packman, as being a Pod Save America. These guys have built businesses on political strife, for better or worse. Is it entertaining and all these other things? That's for you to decide. But what I'm saying is these are the two pillars. The money, with the absence of mainstream media, someone's going to fill that void, and it's being filled by independent thought leaders, and then lazy intellectuals growing because they're just hearing a bunch of shit and regurgitating, but not understanding why they think this stuff. Do you think I'm incorrect?
No, I don't think you're incorrect, man. There wasn't a third part of that?
No, just those two.
Just those two? Okay, so being a grifter and then lazy intellectuals, man. Yeah. I like that term, too. That's what I was going to say a little earlier. I was like, man, I like that. What did you say? People say that you made the term up?
No, it's just something that I've kind of like, I'm sure someone has coined it, lazy intellectuals, right? Because
you might need a patent that.
I need to do a trademark.
You can Bruce Buffer somebody else's ass. Say lazy intellectual. I dare you. No, man, lazy intellectuals, bro. I think you hit the nail right on the head, man. Because it's like you said, you get on those certain algorithms, you start going down the echo chamber of all these people going there. Just as an example, the lizard people. You know what I mean?
Conspiracy theories are fun though. That's the problem.
I love conspiracy theories. That's the thing. It's almost
enticing.
It's like racist humor. Like I love it, but at the same time, I don't believe it. Like you know what I mean?
Oh, there's some truth to it. If you've ever heard of an Albanian joke, they're probably right.
There's truth to every joke. That's why most comedians
don't buy a used car from an Albanian. I'm telling you right now, we are the worst.
and with that being said. I love Albania. No, but no, there's definitely the fact that you surround yourself with people who have like these similar ideas, and you guys are bouncing these ideas off each other. It does make you feel smarter than you actually are, because a guy will be like, oh yeah, I heard of that, but have you heard of this? And so, like you said, when you want people to come on and debate their facts, they need that other guy there to bounce that idea off of there. It's like, oh yeah, well I looked this up because he said that, and I saw this fact, and it was was a Pizzagate, the Pizzagate guy. Remember him? He was in an echo chamber.
Yeah.
So much so that he stressed himself out enough to go with a gun and get to shooting, asking where the kids are.
The problem with conspiracy theories too is the erosion of our trust in our government and our agencies.
Whose fault is that? My question to you.
Exactly.
Whose fault is that?
It's the government's.
Because the government literally just released like findings saying that they were involved, or that they knew that Malcolm X was going to get killed.
Yeah. Also Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King, and I might be tripping, but wasn't there something like what, WikiLeaks, something about Nixon and the CIA killing JFK or something like that, or just they had a job in there that like a supposed if we had to kill JFK in there, like
brother, when you look back at the history of America post World War II specifically, because before World War II, it was just a fundamentally different America that wasn't as established. And the victory of World War II really did set the paradigm for America to be the world leader. Okay.
Man.
That was the problem. Number one, we didn't necessarily invest as much human capital as other countries, i.e. Russia, because a lot of times if you look back at World War II history, the notion is that like this war was happening and then the Allies came in after Pearl Harbor, and with the Allies' help.
Okay, real quick before I lose the thought, because just stay right there, because this is so. With that, the whole conspiracy thing we were going on into, the fact that America got into that war in the first place when they were making money off all the guns, that just seems like a conspiracy.
Well,
like Japan attacking Pearl Harbor in the first place. Weren't they saying like that was an accident?
No, it wasn't even an accident.
Like,
Japan attacked. So what happened, you're absolutely correct in your historical accuracy. So America at the time was playing the same game that it was like in a lot of ways today, where I don't want to say we had a military industrial complex back then. We did not. But what we were doing was we were trying to be Switzerland. We were trying to do like the George Washington approach of like other nations' problems are their problems. And we had also paid a huge price from World War I, and we were currently going through a Great Depression ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, first of all, we had seen the horrors of trench warfare and this like really bogged down sort of, victory of inches at the cost of immense human life, and we were not rushing to get into that. That was Europe's problem. Let them handle it.
Our great-grandparents were some OGs.
Yeah, dude, right?
We could never.
Simultaneously being coupled with the economic strife of the Great Depression, where like you had unemployment. Like if we have 10% unemployment right now, you have people like on social media bitching and all that stuff. I think unemployment got as high as 60% in the Great Depression, 70% in the Great Depression. Could you imagine you're entering a room, 2/3 of the people don't have jobs? That's insane. That's like economic, that's societal collapse, right? The food lines and all these other things. It was, the timing of history could be constituted as coincidental, but we were talking off the record about this. I don't necessarily believe that. I think that in this chaos, there's some calculations. And I do believe when you look at human history as a whole, our own history, down to the individual to the macro, from an individual to a nation to a world, I do believe that the hands of God have kind of steered humanity in one way or another. And I do look at specifically U.S. history as that. I do believe that this nation is like preordained and blessed by the Almighty. I do.
Have you seen The Kingsman, the last one that came out?
No.
With the table? Oh, man.
Dude, I don't have the time to watch TV like I used to, brother.
God. Well, that's because you're making money. You ever see a Lamborghini commercial? Let's go. Let's go. No. Continue. I'm sorry.
No, but long story short, what I was talking about with like, there is a narrative that World War II that the American army was like, the factor that changed the course of that war, right? But in reality, and I'm not trying to be like, Russia is like this great nation or whatever. I do think that they are just inherently inferior to America in a plethora of reasons.
Size of their country.
Yes. Well, it's just as big as America.
Yeah, man.
The Russian continent is about as big as America, the nation.
Is it really?
Yes. Your globe, our map.
You're telling me the place that Napoleon tried to track.
Africa is twice the size of Russia. Okay? We don't do our maps don't do the world justice. Now, the total amount of terrain that Russia has, including like the northernmost parts where that like the Siberian mountains and
don't
everything.
they have like all
yeah,
of
but no
the
one lives
climate
there.
conditions?
No one lives there. It's almost inhabitable.
Yeah.
So that'd be like me saying like, oh, we have this state with toxic gas. Like, is it land? Yes. Can anybody live there? No. Would you constitute it as like land to conquer? No, no one wants that. Not even Russia. So what I'm saying is like the habitable parts of Russia are about as big as America in terms of geographical size. Africa, in terms of our like map, if you look at any map, like America is like this big old continent, and then like they make Africa like the same size as America. You can fit like 3 or 4 America, like
Inside of Africa.
United States of Americas. You can fit 3 or 4 of them in the continent of Africa.
That's why
Yet
when they talk
Africa
about
is
Ebola-
somehow the same size as America. It's insane.
That's when they talk about Ebola in Africa. These, of course, what I mean, I like humor of all kinds, but when people they start to get serious on me about Africa, they'd be like, "Well, Africa still has slavery. Africa still has Ebola." I'm like, bro, listen, that would be like, first of all, we have slavery here. We still have pimps.
We
You know
have
what I mean?
we have
Like,
a different form
we
of
have a
slavery.
different
We have
form of
economics.
slavery.
We have like Jim Crow 2.0.
Jim Crow 2.0.
And
you know
by
what
the
I mean?
way, it's beautiful because it's not just on black people. It's on
Everyone.
it's on everybody
It's on
that
everybody.
makes under a certain amount of money.
And I consider Jim Crow 2.0 the fact that we get taxed 30%. You know what I mean? That's kind of insane to me. But Ebola would be off in the corner in Alaska somewhere, and then so would the slavery in Africa. Like, that's how big the continent is.
Well, it's
Like they got people there who speak 7 languages.
You
There's so
also
much
have-
wealth there, and it's all different countries.
well, if you do believe the origination of like evolution and like the Darwinism, then you subsequently will believe that the Fertile Crescent was the birth of humanity as we know it, right? If you're not necessarily
Is that spot
biblically
like right below Ethiopia?
yes,
Yeah,
yes, and then the first humate.
Lucy.
Yes. Well, yeah, I guess, yeah. I think Lucy was what?
That's what they considered a humanoid.
Yeah, the first Homo sapien, correct. Or like the first Homo sapien that they've, like, the oldest record Homo sapien that they've uncovered was, I believe, Lucy.
That conversation's trippy, isn't it? When I was taking anthropology, they were talking about there being 3 species of actual, like, us. You know what I mean? They said there was humanoid, Neanderthal, and then, like, Cro-Magnon. You know what I mean? Cro-Magnons are more, like, related to, like, the Native American stuff that we had the strong brown stuff like that. Neanderthals actually weren't stupid. They're real smart, but they had what you call super enlarged organs and stuff because they could digest or were supposed to eat more meat and stuff like that. And then it's just like, we killed both of them. Like,
Well, if you look at
war with
nature
them,
now, if Darwinism is your approach to like how the origination of humanity naturally occurred, I'm not trying to say anything about anything. You have species of animals that coexist with other species of animals today that you see it. Multiple species of dogs and birds and what. If Darwinism is to be true, and we did originate from primates and evolved throughout the course of history, then it would make sense that like versions of us existed with one another, right? And then survival of the fittest, the smarter, more agile, the more
reproduce quicker.
the ones that could sustain the hardships of life will probably kill out the encroaching inferior creatures. I mean, it just happens logically in nature now. So it would not shock me if you were to like do some sort of carbon dating to see like a lot of these versions of humans before Homo sapiens kind of coexisting, or at the very least existing in the same time, perhaps in different parts of the world, right? It doesn't shock me at all. I honestly think this is going to be kind of stupid, but I'm going to go here with you. I actually think the Bible and Darwinism are both right in a way. I think that humans were created, but not necessarily like we just evolved from apes, okay? But I think that there was some fuckery there.
Dude, see, I knew there was a reason we wore the same color today. We're literally on the same length. While we were talking earlier, I was sitting there thinking, because you were talking about, Darwinism and then the evolutionary process, and I was just sitting there thinking, I was like, I can't wait to tell them that I believe that God and science are one and the same. I think that if you were going to perceive God, do you think that 7 days to him would be 7 days to us?
No, the perception of time is relevant.
Exactly. So if you think about it, man, like God could have took 7 billion years for everything just to form for us. You know what I mean? Everything that happens in your life, every blessing, everything that you pray for, the act of what is it called? Manifesting. What is that called? where you have positive thoughts and it happens. What's that called? Affirmations. There you go. When you affirm something,
That's why she sits there.
you're creating it. The theory is you're creating a mental image in your mind, and there it's real. You know what I mean? And that will create a pull on the universe. Who's to say that the golden mean and stuff like that isn't the natural pull of God? Someone said, zoom out as far as you can, you'll see an island. Zoom out more, you see the earth. Zoom out more, you see a galaxy. Zoom out more, and you might see God. So I think that it coincides together, like you said. I think that they're both right, and that when King James or whoever rewrote it, and then Rick Ross got it, it's just that. Like,
there's two ways to look at origination and the mysteries of the universe or the cosmos. There's the scientific method way, where in its exclusivity, where actually three ways, if I may. The scientific method way, where whatever is not observable or provable is not that it doesn't exist or can't exist, it's just we don't know the science yet. And with technological improvements, our ability to measure data and these things, along with hypothesis, because Stephen Hawking predicted black holes before we ever had the actual first image of a black hole, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately for him, he didn't live long enough to see the fruition of his hypothesis come true.
They just
How did
took
he
him
get
out.
that hypothesis? Through mathematics. Used what he did know to try to figure out something that could possibly be a thing. Maybe the math steers to this direction. If this is true and this is true, then this is the next logical thing that has to be true. Turns out he was right. There's provable, the observable, provable universe that we can objectively see. Okay. Then there's like the biblical. Okay, where miracles and all these other things, metaphysical, spiritual, a dimension we haven't seen. Okay, I think they're both right, and I think truly what we are living in right now is both happening simultaneously. I think that if you believe to its natural conclusion that this, like, let's say you believe in the Big Bang, okay? Objectively speaking, how is the Big Bang any different from Genesis?
Yeah.
How? There was nothing, and then there was something, okay? You are hypothesizing that it was, it was the whole matter of the cosmos, of all of these, billions and billions light years of space was condensed to the size of an atom, and then for some reason an explosion happened, and the constant cosmic expansion now occurs. Okay, fine. If that's what your belief is, by all means, there's some logic to it. I'm with you. And if you believe that a guy in the sky created everything in 7 days, fine. As far as I'm concerned, both of those are equally crazy, right? How is one more legitimate than the other?
Would that put you in the mind of being like the scientific method? Because just because you can't observe it doesn't mean that it's not true. But anything that you can prove.
What if I told you that science was created by God?
Yeah.
It's our way of measuring the universe set by his standards. If there is such a being as divinity, or truthfully, I don't even know if God as we perceive him is the way God is, if that makes sense. Because you look at some of these like tapestries and you look at some of human history where we kind of chronological, or there was some sort of civilizations that chronicled, expanse that was way in excess of their technological capabilities. You know what I mean? The Egyptian pyramids being one, Mayan temples having, pictures of men that look like astronauts on caves. That's why I say, like, I do believe in Darwinism and like evolution because it's kind of observable in our real time, right? But also I believe that there was some fuckery. And here's the thing, right?
I love fuckery.
Yeah, here's the thing. I do believe in aliens for one reason and one reason alone. There's no way that we are alone in this cosmos. There's just
it's too
no
big.
way, right? It's statistically improbable. Probably impossible, but statistically improbable. So if there are aliens, then God is not beholden to just us as our own creation. He would have created them as well. Well, just like we have kind of subverted, and like, let's say like there's like this species of penguin is about to go extinct, and then man gets involved to try to rehab the population and fix it and whatever. I think that it is incumbent on the smarter, more rational species to kind of foster and promote life in all its various forms. I also think that that's some shit that can happen if aliens come down here, splice some shit with monkeys, and create us.
Because we were about to go extinct. We were doing what we're trying to do now and destroyed our ozone or our biological
Or maybe they saw,
systems.
perhaps they saw, because like we do it now. We breed dogs. We do gene splicing of a bunch of shit. We have
You think they did it just to do it?
broccoli as you know it doesn't exist in nature.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't exist in nature. It's a gene splice between cauliflower and the broccolini from Eurasian peninsulas. Okay, so the broccoli that's on everybody's fucking table, you can't find that shit in nature. You have to create it. Is that good or bad? I like broccoli.
I like broccoli too,
So-
especially with cheese.
So if we do
Is
that,
it giving us cancer?
but here's the thing: how long did humans have to go to the point where progress to the point that they could do something like that, create broccoli? Well, then how much longer until we can start creating different species of animals by gene splicing, biological matter?
Get a liger.
Yeah. What's to stop you? And here's the thing:
It's cloning. It's the laws.
cloning and all
That's
this
the
stuff.
only
And
thing
by the
that's
way,
stopping
where
us.
is that found in? The Bible.
Yeah.
Chimeras. This is what I'm trying to say. Like there seems to be a Venn diagram between science, the observable and objectable universe, and also the spiritual, the unseen realms, this, that, or the other. I don't think that they're either ones are wrong. I just think it's a Venn diagram, and they actually share more than they separate. I think that when a doctor uses science to save somebody's life, that is an act of God working through that doctor.
Amen.
You know what I mean? Now, is God going to come in and like magically touch you and cure your cancer? No. What did he do? He put the medicine in front of you to do it for you. The other argument could be also that the cancer was created because of the food that you ate or whatever. It's man-made creation, man-made solution, but man was made in what? The image of God. Mm-hmm. Forgive me, I'm ranting here a little bit. I guess
Man, I love it, dude. That's what I was saying. You're talking about something super interesting, kind of just like you said, the what of God? What did you just say?
the divine providence or the image of God.
The image of God.
We were made in His image.
And like you were saying with the doctor being able to save someone's life, that's God acting through someone. He didn't come down and fix your cancer, but he did offer the influence in someone's life through certain means. It's like, okay, if God can't directly come down and tell me, he says, Tivon, you need to start eating better. What starts happening? I start getting the negative effects of the devil. You know what I mean? I start gaining unnecessary weight. I start feeling disease and things like that. And depending on where my faith is, and that's why I believe faith is important, you're either going to think, oh, man, why is it always me? Or, man, I need to probably, eat better.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I feel a certain way. Like, it's
And that's
the
a
same
scientific
thing.
method. You're navigating, you're taking in data in real time about how you are currently feeling biologically and deducing that this is not good. I need to change that, right? That's the scientific method in act. It could also be, a spiritual aspect to that. Perhaps you don't feel good, but your diet's fine, but you go to church and you feel better afterwards. Like some sort of euphoric feeling, the dopamine hit, a chemical response to a spiritual act that you're doing. Yeah. Whatever it is, as long as it's not hurting anybody else, as long as you're not infringing on their rights and liberties, have at it. You could take ayahuasca or smoke some weed or drink a little bit of alcohol and get some sort of weird euphoric feeling because now your brain is in an inhibited mode where the normal chemical balances are out of whack, and now you're experiencing a different reality from the normal one that you experience. I also think that it's an act of like spirituality, God, different dimensions, what have you. I just don't think
All dimensions.
1,000 years ago, all of what we're saying, including science, would be like, what the fuck are you guys talking about? With the exception of, Old Testament. Now, 1,000 years, we're talking about possible dimensions and this and that. What would we be talking about in 1,000 years? Man, those Neanderthals back then, they believed in Jesus Christ when it's reality, like, some chemical equation out in the cosmos somewhere. I equate it to...
It was a dark seed.
Right? But here's the thing, because you brought up the devil. So here's the flip side of that, too. Where does... we have a real fondness for finding divinity's place in our lives. So then how could you then have something like a devil or like the anti-divinity or the opposite of that equation where it is not necessarily prosperity and life and beauty and it is death and decay and famine and all these other things? Do you think that is by design as well?
Scientific method, man. Because what's the law where here I go showing my ignorance again. But what was the law where it's like for there to be something on one side, there needs to be an equal something on the other side?
For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
And that's the same thing with good and evil.
I think that's
man.
what the first law of physics.
If
No, if something is in motion, it'll stay in motion. No, that's the second law of physics. Forgive me. So yeah, the first law of physics is for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction.
And that in itself, like you said, that's why I'm big on believing in God and science at the same time, or let's say, like you said, divinity and science at the same time. I think that there is definitely a construct going on, fuckery, if you will, going on here that's directing, not only the course of the United States, but every like just minute detail that goes on in our lives, like even down to like, let's say what happened to our boy that Luigi just assassinated. Mangione, like
the CEO of what was the insurance company? United Healthcare. Thank you, Adrian.
There's darkness in that. There's darkness in killing somebody and wishing and being like, well, you know what, that guy deserved it because he was fucking over all these people on healthcare.
Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
There's more darkness in the people that are promoting that assassination than Luigi actually executing on it.
Yeah.
I can understand an individual saying or harboring hatred. When I say, I want to be careful how I say this. One single act of extreme violence through emotions held with an individual can make sense to me. I've been susceptible to wrath and all these other things. Thank God I've never executed something as heinous as murder, right? But what I think is even darker is that second layer separation, the masses somehow tying their own strife or what have you to this CEO and are happy to see him die because some system in place is not to their liking, when they live in a country where if at any moment they actually banded together and started voting some people in and voting some people out, they could change the trajectory of this business on their own. You live in America. If you don't like something, go to your elected officials. If they're not going to change it, vote them out. Yeah. That's your right and the biggest power you have. What you don't do is you start advocating for a society in which if someone disagrees with you, you put a bullet in their head.
That's insane.
That's insane. In a civilized society, previous versions of humanity, that's Monday. We live in the most peaceful time in human history. Mm-hmm. But we also have the greatest weapons of war and the greatest weapons of our own self-destruction in human history. This is a responsibility, not just at an individual level, but at a societal. I don't want to nuke anybody because I know what that'll lead to. Just like I don't want to shoot anybody because I don't know what that'll lead to.
I might get shot.
Right?
Yeah. Pistol fights are never fun.
No.
I've heard like the percentages on those things, and it's like, you'd be surprised how many bullets people actually miss at close range with a handgun.
Is it surprising? Think about how many people get into fights that don't know how to fight. Yes. It doesn't shock me that people get into gunfights that don't know how to gunfight.
Miss everything. Who was I talking to that scene about Pulp Fiction? Where everybody's like, where Julius was like, was that an act of God? And he was like, no, that guy kind of came out firing with this huge gun that was bigger than him. And I don't know, man. That's kind of weird how that kind of links into the same thing we were just talking about good and evil. You know what I'm saying? Good things happen to evil people, and evil people can change by seeing an act of God or what they perceive to be an act of God. So, I think that's why I really enjoy the whole idea of redemption and repentance inside of, religion. Again, be it what you believe and saying that, it could just be, 1,000 years from now, we might find out what it actually was. You could have been easing the tension from the energy you're putting out into the atmosphere that was affecting your ability to affirm things and bring in what you want because you felt bad about something instead of it actually being a divine intervention, you know what I mean, or something like that. But I think that it's a super interesting topic when you start talking about things like that, dude. Because
I think it's by design as well.
Yeah.
Because if you have a constant state of good, you stop feeling good because that's your constant state. That's the new norm. And I think that in order to introduce the beauty of life, you have to also in order to appreciate a mountain, you have to have a valley, right?
Aye.
There has to be this delta between the observable world so that you can value when things are good and then be thankful when things are good, but also overcome the bad knowing that it's not forever.
That's deep.
Right? So if strife were our constant, if life just sucked, you will then get to a state of apathy where life will cease to exist. Because why are we existing only to be miserable? Why are we existing only to, be hungry and die of disease and all these other things? You get to the point where people start saying, fuck this. Yeah. We've seen it before in human history where you could say something along the lines of like the declining birth rate in America today, in the world today, and a direct correlation to the mental capacity for our value of life and where the trajectory of human ingenuity and prosper is going. Like, people are having less kids because they're less hopeful of the future.
It's not because women are getting meaner.
No.
Just kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm just playing. I'm just kidding.
I do. I mean, listen. I do think that there's like an onion of an issue there, right? I do think that the gender norms had some value. I think you should progress to a point where the genders are as equal as possible, while understanding that they'll never be equal in terms of like biological nature. That's fine. You know what I mean? We should be equal in the eyes of the Lord in terms of like a woman should have the same power as a man should have the same power as a woman, a black woman, a white woman, a black man, a white man, whatever. We should have equality in that sense. But we live inherently in reality, the observable universe. In the eyes of our Lord, we're all the same.
Yeah.
But in the eyes of a cheetah, if you're slower than me, you're dinner.
Your food.
Right? So it's like, what's reality? I think if you have the divinity, by virtue of that being the creator of all, he created evil. He created the strife. He does this on purpose in order to introduce strife. Not necessarily to get you to believe and all that other stuff, but balance.
The balance. That's what I was alluding to a little earlier. It was like, that's why they were like, why would God create the devil? It's like, man, if God was the God that we think you are, if we're talking like the super textual one, why would God not create the test to figure out who is, you know what I'm saying?
I don't even think it's a test.
No, but I'm just saying, like, it would make sense for you to be influenced by dark forces. You know what I mean?
I believe that God saves all, even the non-believers.
Oh, yeah.
I do. I don't think you have to be baptized to be saved. I don't even think you have to believe in Jesus Christ to be saved.
I believe that too.
I believe the same miracle that created the life in my lungs and my heart and everything and the
Do you believe that you have to be a good person though?
I don't think anyone has to do anything.
And what makes a good person?
Exactly where I was going to get
You know?
to. I think we have needs by logical design, and that we enjoy the presence of one another because we are so gifted internally. There will never be and never has been a Tivon Taylor as I see before me today.
It never will be. No.
But what a miracle that I sit here today and enjoy this creature in front of me.
Amen.
That has never existed before and will never exist again in this small span of time.
Right back
in terms of the greater cosmos. Every day is a miracle when you think of it in that. I'll go an even step further. How lucky you are to even be alive. When your dad and mom got together, how many other cells could have been somebody else? Millions. The amount of death that happens every day, the amount of life should be cherished. The only reason I bring that up is when you were talking about like what makes good people, we as a species, as a people, enjoy the company of others, right? In prison, in penitentiary, in jail, the worst repercussion you can be given is solitary confinement. Why? Because we're taking you away from other people. We're robbing you of that social need you have, right? Of interaction and love and community. That's something in us for whatever reason. And the worst thing we can do is separate you from that, aside from taking your life.
Yeah.
Right? Second worst thing.
Make you share a cell with Diddy.
I don't know. I mean, some people might like that.
Some people might like that. Never mind. You're right.
So I guess what I'm trying to say more than anything to your question of like what makes a good person is it's in your best interest, even if you don't know it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You might be a greedy motherfucker. You might only want money.
I know I'm greedy, man.
But you might want money and status and power and all these other things. And then what does every rich person say when they have them?
It's not
everything.
Yeah.
It's not everything. Because there's some things that money can't buy. What can money not buy?
Trust.
Love. Admiration. Trust. All these things don't cost you $1. What do they cost you? Not being a cunt.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Shout
in
out
your
Billy Butcher.
It's in your I love the voice.
Part.
It's in your best interest to be a good person. It's in your best interest to be a good person.
It is.
Is it sometimes easier in the short term to be a bad person, to steal, to lie, and all these other things? Maybe. We're human. We're fallible.
Yeah.
But when we lie and we feel bad about it, or when we steal and we're like, that person worked hard for that, that's the peaks and valleys. Maybe next we do something a little bit better because we did wrong before, and now we're learning and we're going from an intelligent creature to a wise creature.
And that's a good message to give people, man, because they think it's too late for me. They've done wrong so long, and at the end of that song, what was it, Ultralight Beam with Kanye West, and what's his name, Kurt Franklin came on. He said a little prayer for people, and he said, you can never go too far where you can't go back home again. And that just means so much to me because, again, I keep harping it, but going back to the Bible, you don't have to take the Bible literally. Like, you're not supposed to sit there and be like, oh, the fire's going to come down on me. You take it as what it is. And I know the correct terminology might not be metaphor, but it's like a metaphor.
It is.
Do you know
it's
what I mean?
It's a lot of metaphors.
It's a big metaphor, and it's just like the same thing in anime. You know what I mean? Shout out Solo Leveling because that one was awesome. But same thing with a comic book or with your favorite superhero and just like, how Superman acts and stuff like that. You take the metaphors from these people who were written by these people from the lessons that they've probably learned in their life. And that was, if I could in this moment be this superhero and be infallible, I would be. You know what I mean? But unfortunately, we're not Superman. We're not all powerful. We can't fly as fast as a speeding bullet. Sometimes we have to get by being grimy. And you can always repent for that, man. You can, and I'm not saying go out and do a bunch of crimes and murder people and stuff like that, but it's like, even if you have done all that stuff, God forbid, it's never too late to, like you said, don't be a cunt. Like, you can stop. You can stop. You can be better. Like,
as long as you truly want it.
As long as you truly want it.
If you are making mistakes constantly and saying, I need to change, but never changing, never really accepting the fallacy of your lifestyle, then I don't think you'll ever find that true harmony within yourself.
And that's another question for you.
But I hate to say it this way because I don't want people to think that they can just do whatever they want. I do believe that every piece of life on this planet is cherished and its energy and all these other things. It was created. It was birthed by some miracle. I don't think that your choices on this planet, this temporary existence in this realm that we can measure, truly have weight. Yeah. I don't think they do.
Priceless.
I think if you're the best person, you're going to go to the same place as the worst person. And I think there's a beauty to that. But I do think that you can have an objectively better time in this short test if you're just not a cunt. Yeah. I've been mean. I've been like I said, when I was younger, I was vain, I was envious, I was jealous, and all these other things. And I just lived an inferior lifestyle than I do now. I'm happier now. I have less jealousy. I'm not without jealousy, but I have less jealousy. I have less envy. I have less wrath. I have less greed. I have less of all these things. I still have some of them. I'm human, but I'm objectively, my life is better, and I have less of these sins. So now, going throughout my life, my goal is to try to get as close to empty on these sins as possible. And it for no other reason, for selfish reasons. I want to have the best time. It just so happens that the best time on this planet is when I'm surrounded by people that love me and admire me and, benefit from me. I want to create prosperity. I want people to know me and be better for knowing me. Hey, that's the legacy I want.
That's adding something.
Yes, leaving it better than I found it.
Yeah.
That's the prosperity of humanity. Because if the previous generation was of the mind to leave it worse than they found it, where does that leave us?
Yeah.
Baby boomers.
Baby boomers.
Learn from that shit.
Yeah, for real though, man. No, I don't know, man. It's just, we got super existential there for a second. Dude.
I love this shit. These are the conversations I love having. It puts everything into perspective. Like, why am I doing what I'm doing? Because, like, it's short term, medium term, long term, and then, like, infinity. Yeah. And then once you think about infinity, you realize how stupid all this shit is. So, like, I'll give you an example. Like, why not steal the $100 in front of you? Well, I mean, in the short term, that $100 can fill my gas tank, can do this, can do that, whatever. But then you go to like the medium range. Well, will I feel that $100 later on? Probably not. 20 years, 30 years down the line, you'll forget it even happened. So why is this decision about stealing this so monumental to you now? This gravity of like, if I steal this, like this person's out of $100, like, but it means a lot to me. No, it means a lot to you right now. So like in the grand scheme of things, this is actually immaterial. So then why would you do this? And then suffer for that later on? Because you'll remember that you stole it, but you won't remember what you got for that $100. You'll just remember that you stole it. That's at least the way I think. When I do wrong by someone or whatever, like, yeah, there's that short-term gain, but then that short-term gain is like very short-term. And then a week from then, a month from then, I still did that act. I still did wrong, but the benefits of that have already subsided. Mm-hmm. The feeling that I have, that nastiness of lying or stealing or whatever, that carries on.
Yeah. And that's what your character is. That will show what your character is. As long as you have some sort of empathy towards knowing something you've done something's wrong, is that a blessing or a curse? Does that show that you're? That's where I was getting at a little bit earlier, because I was like, hey, I had a question for you. So when it comes to like you said, on the inside, if you know that you want to truly be a good person, not saying I'm a psychopath, but there's some people out there who are less empathetic, but know that they have to go through the motions, not to seem human, but just because they know that it's the right thing to do, but they don't really care. What about those people? Where do they fit into the mix? Because you know what I mean? Because there's some people out there who probably walk around and just like, I could probably be a murderer, but just don't act on those emotions and stuff like that, and they just walk around us every day. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, what you're really talking about is like suppressing our violent tendencies or natural urges or what have you. I mean, but if you ask any guy, I'm sure they were going to want to have as much sex as possible, right? Mm-hmm. But what I would say is, and this is actually this is why I believe the number one political thing that everyone should be worried about is economics, because every other strife comes after. Mm-hmm. Like, why are you so worried about illegal immigration? Because we don't have the economics to fund them. Why are you so worried about crime? Well, because if more people had money, there'd be less crime. Or not necessarily money, but economic opportunities, there'd be less crime. It's like every single issue stems from economics, including this one, in the sense of like, okay, if you're a man and you want to have sex, you would want to have sex with like every woman if you didn't have any sort of, curtailing to your natural urges. But then you might have a girlfriend. Okay, maybe you meet a girl that you had sex with, and she's actually pretty cool. You like being around her. Okay, so like this is now more than sex with you. I still want to have sex with other women, but I like you a little bit. You can hang out. Well,
so you try to kill her?
No.
No. Oh, wait. My bad. That's not where we're going? No. Oh, okay. Sorry.
But then it's like, well, do you want other people to have sex with the girl that you like? Some people do. We call that cuckold, teach their own, no king shaming. But the majority of men don't. Why? Because they treasure that. Yeah. Well, then the same act of like why you wouldn't want some other man to have sex with your woman is why you shouldn't have sex with someone else's woman. Yeah. Because internally you understand what that would do to that man. And I think this is what we have to start doing is like when you start giving people more things, and I'm not saying like tangible things, more love, more empathy, more friends, more this, that, or the other, those urges are easier to suppress or kind of keep within ourselves, our natural monkey urges, because we understand the weight of that thing, right? I love living. It's the number one thing I do. I live every day, right? I don't want to take that from somebody else by taking their life. If I don't like living, if I don't like this world, if I don't like how I interact with my surroundings, I value life less. Suddenly I might be a little bit more susceptible to possibly ending somebody else's life because I value life less. Does that make sense? I think this is how this shit happens. Now, I think there's also psychopathy. I think there's psychos out there that can talk themselves into certain things, but I also like to think that that's the vast, 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 vast minority of cases. The vast majority of them, I think, are as I have described it. That's why I often say, if you want to end terrorism, crime, and all these other things, give people things to live for instead of martyrs to die for. Mm-hmm. If you give people purpose, and that purpose can take many forms, being a father, being a husband, being an employee, being a business owner, being a friend, whatever those purposes are, stack them. Get as many purposes as you can so that if you lose some of them, you're still fine. Right? You don't want to be the CEO with no family, no kids, and then you lose your job. You're going to put a bullet in your head that day, right? Because that's all you have. So you want to stack purposes to kind of reduce the risk of existential crisis in your life from one-offs. Yeah. And if everybody has that, I think you have a better society. I do. If someone wants to present a differing opinion, I'm all ears. But I'm 32 years old, and this is kind of like the conclusion I've come to so far.
That synopsis is like almost dead on perfect to kind of the crisis that people are in financially now. Just like you said, if all you have is your kids and your wife, and then you lose those, you're going to put a bullet in your head that day. People can't even afford $1,000 accident going on. You know
1,000, 100.
100. You know what I'm saying? Just a random something that they absolutely need out of somewhere. It's a panic. You know what I mean?
This is why I think Democrats lost the last election, even though some of their platform is actually better. They lost it because they lost the sauce. They lost what was important to people. You're talking about the transgenders. You're talking about the gays and all this. Motherfucker, I can't afford eggs. Yeah. It's not that I don't want these people to love whoever they want to love or use whatever the fucking bathroom they want. Is this really the issue we need to be focusing on right now? Mm-hmm. Read the temperature in the room. I can't put gas in my tank. I can't get to work. There's illegals in my community that are willing to take my job for half my pay because they want to get paid cash. like, these are the issues. When you separate yourselves from the masses, don't be surprised when the masses separate from you.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. And the fact that they had Megan Thee Stallion twerking out there did not help them. I was looking at that. I was just like, man.
Did you? What did you think of that? Like,
was
whole
insane.
Was this presidential election like the weirdest one to you?
It was one. It is. I'm not gonna lie. Yes. No, out of everyone that even when I look back in history, and when didn't somebody shoot somebody before one? Like, didn't they have a duel and then came back and was like a president? I don't know.
You talking about Teddy Roosevelt?
Is that who I'm talking about? Yeah.
Teddy killed some guys.
Yeah.
It'd be like that sometimes.
It'd be like that sometimes when you T Rose, but no, yeah,
I'm never calling him Teddy Roosevelt ever again. T Rose.
The wild man. Yeah, definitely the weirdest, man. Because, like you said, just it's like if people claimed that Donald Trump was as unintelligent as he is, and I'm not going to sit here and say that he is super intelligent.
There's
or
also
anything
different
like that.
forms of intelligence.
There's different forms of intelligence, but provided that you cannot tell me again, and I get how the process is supposed to work with the vice presidency, like as especially when it comes down to running terms and stuff. So she was the favorite of the House or whatever. So that's why she got the pick. You couldn't have found anyone who actually like.
No, I don't agree with that though, Tivon, because in a democracy, in a true democratic fashion, the vice president isn't just nodded. You have a primary.
Yeah, and I don't agree with it either. I think we should have a vote.
Ideally,
they should
ideally, if you picked the best candidate for vice president, it would just so happen that then that would be what the primary process would then lead to. Is like, okay, we had the primary, and yes, the president picked the best vice president because now we want that person to be our president. Mm-hmm. But if the marketplace of ideas dictates that that's not so, well, then let the people decide.
Yeah.
So I think a big reason why she lost, the two big reasons, one of them was that.
Yeah.
The Democrats didn't have a primary.
Yeah.
If you're a Democrat, and this is just getting shoved down your throat, some are blue no matter who, duly noted, just like there's like, the conservatives that will vote red no matter what. If I was a Democrat, I'd be like, what the fuck? Are you not even going to ask me what I think? Am I that valueless to you?
Yeah.
Do you think my vote is just...
And I'll probably get heat for this, but people were like, and like you were saying, there's been people who've died for the right to vote. I understand how important it is to vote, but with the weirdness, like I've actually voted ever since I've turned 18. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But with this
in every election?
Yeah, in every election. But honestly, I didn't vote for this one because no, I live in Illinois. I knew that Kamala was going to win it. You know what I mean? Not saying that's who I would have voted for. I just didn't want to cast a vote in general.
But did you vote at all, or just not for the president? Because there's like down.
I voted all the way down to shout out to my mom because she lets me know when like smaller stuff is going on. Like even I voted for stuff that went on in my city. Like
the smaller stuff that's actually big. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, it's actually
amendments.
Who your governor is matters.
Yes, well, that's the president of your state.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Who your mayor is matters. Who your representative matters. And
yes.
If you're not like taking the time to look at that stuff, don't bitch about what's going on with your income. You know what I mean?
They will affect your life more than the president.
Exactly, because they will make the president. You know what I mean? And the fact that it felt like to me more of what's the word? It's probably an incorrect phrasing, but not even a democratic monarchy. I just felt like it was two people with money who are backed by two parties with money who have all these other parties with better ideas and better ways to run the country that a lot of people agreed with, but other people were just like, no, we're just stuck with these two ones.
I don't agree with that. A lot of parties with better ideas, because if that were the case, then these people would be like lifted up. I think,
but they're broke. They don't get $20 million Betsy DeVos who can come in and be the House.
Yeah, but you're seeing the marketplace of ideas happening within the two-party system first. I agree that I don't like the two-party system, so let's get that on the table. I would love for like the independent, or not independent, but
that's the
libertarian, green,
democratic monarchies. That's why I put it that.
There's a duopoly for sure. There's a duopoly.
Duopoly, like it's like the fact that we only get to pick between these two is kind of crazy to me. I feel like. The Spartan system was better than that. They'd go around and pick random 5 people every 2 years, and those guys will govern the country. Well, random, rich, poor, didn't matter.
Yeah, I agree with everything that you said up until the point of like people having better ideas and it being agreed upon that they do, like other parties. Because if that were the case, then it would be the case. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What you were saying earlier when you were saying, like, shout out to my mom for, like, kind of educating me on some of the things on the down ballot. God bless your mom, right?
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to say is the term that I used earlier, like lazy intellectuals, we have a society of people that want to bitch about the duopoly. We have a society of people that want to bitch about the status quo and all these other things. But when it comes time to vote,
They don't vote.
or they won't vote, or they'll just vote down ballot like blue, 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 blue,
Democratic.
blue.
Yeah, they'll just pick one party.
Or they'll look at the thing, little snippets. They have no idea what amendment is going on until the day they're voting. They did no due diligence. I don't fault people for being ignorant. I don't. It's hard to be learned. It really is. I fault people for being ignorant and then being upset that the world is like caving in around them.
Mm-hmm.
If I was driving with a blindfold, would you blame the car? If I got hit a wall? No, I'm the driver.
Yeah.
And I hate to say it this way, every voter is in some way, shape, or form the driver. And if you really felt as fervent about whatever it is that you're fighting for, you would activate yourself on it. Like if I was like pro-choice to the day I die, then I would go to my community. I would go broaden that. I would get a coalition together. I would get money together to then fund the politicians that are pro-life. This is the process in which we do. This is why I also believe in lobbying, because I think the greatest form, one of the greater forms, first is voting, right? Voting is the absolute. But if I'm like a millionaire, okay, and I want to put like $500,000 to this candidate because he believes in pro-life the way I do, who's to stop me from doing that? Right? Like, who's to stop me from doing that? I can only have one vote, but I can also help carry that voice farther. And then there's a narrative that like Citizens United is bad because, you have like unlimited funding for these things. And I do agree to some sect because you can have bad actors. But then I would also say that in this election more than ever, you've seen those bad actors realize the errors of their ways and realize that they can only continue to rob the American people blind for so long before they're on the same ship with us.
Donald won the popular vote.
Yeah. Well, why do you think he won the popular
Because
vote?
people were sick of that shit.
Yeah.
And they were like, damn, if I can't do anything.
Well, no, he won the popular vote also in conjunction because people that would normally never vote for Republicans did.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think if you asked, like for me, I'm an independent. I voted for Obama, Trump, Trump, Trump. That was my voting history.
Yeah.
Okay. I would have voted for RFK Jr. this time if he was still in the race. But when he stepped down and said vote Trump, okay.
So, question. I want to know, where do you think, again, I don't have, like, in my head, I wouldn't say I'm a Democratic or Republican. But if I were just to give you some random tidbits about myself,
go ahead.
Where do you think that I would lie? So, one, I think everyone should have access to guns.
Okay.
Actually,
so Second Amendment.
Since it's been so watered down to the fact that they're everywhere anyway, I think that we should just go back to the bandolier days where you could get like the little customized joint hips, you know what I mean? The little spinners.
So you think everyone should be strapped?
I think everyone
no
should
age
be
range?
So should be strapped up. Definitely an age range.
Okay, so then not everyone
old.
should be strapped.
Yeah. See,
okay, so
21 years old.
See, this is the problem though.
Actually, no, I'm sorry. 18 years old because you can go to the military at 18.
But ready for this one? This is where politics happen. Because we might also agree on that. You and I could be on the same side of the Second Amendment, but then you could be like anybody at any time. And then I'm like, not kids.
Yeah.
Then there's like another layer to that. Well, what's considered a kid? 13, 14, 15?
Yeah.
And then how do we justify that age? Welcome to the pro-life, pro-choice movement. Because most people, if you ask them, they say they're pro-choice, but then when you show them abortions and things like that, they change their tune real quick. And now the conversation is not necessarily like, whether we're pro-life or pro-choice, because that's black and white. Now it's the 50 shades of gray within. Okay, well, we can't have an abortion in the 9th month. We can't have an abortion in the 6th month, maybe. 3rd month. Maybe. Can we have an abortion forever? Like, now we're not even arguing about abortion anymore. We're arguing what is acceptable and what's not. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think that's actually the better way to have that discussion, because I think blanket bans or blanket, like, you can do whatever you want is just not the answer. I don't.
Yeah. Just like justice.
Not the answer in an event where your actions affect someone else. Okay? That's where it is. I have to get even more nuanced than that.
I love the nuance.
Because speech can affect somebody else.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is in a life or death environment. So like if I say something that affects you in a negative or positive way, I still have that right to some circumstances, because there are some limitations on even the freedom of speech. But, the abortion conversation is, the autonomy of someone to do with whatever they want with their body, coupled with our sanctity for life, right? What's the federal government's number one job? To protect life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The very first thing in that, life. It's a tough conversation, but sorry, to navigate back, you're pretty pro Second Amendment.
That's another deep topic to talk about. Where does life begin?
Yeah, right?
Yeah, like you said, it's all.
But you were going to tell me some political leanings that you have, and then I was going to guess where.
Yeah.
So you're pro Second Amendment.
Pro Second Amendment. Okay. Which call? I think you should be able to marry whoever you want. That's not a problem to me, obviously.
I'll go a step further on that one. Why is the government involved in that at all?
Yeah, why does that matter? Yeah, why does that matter? Yeah, why
for the tax benefits? Everyone says for the tax benefits and like all these other things. Agreed. Why are they even involved in that?
Yeah.
If you get married, if you're married to a lizard, you should benefit from whatever. I don't give a fuck. I really don't. And if that becomes like a tax loophole that everyone uses, then change the tax code.
Especially since you
have to be married to a human. You have to be married. Change the legislation. What you don't do is ban things or prevent things. Like, just change the legislation. Forgive me.
No, you're fine, brother. That's why I like it. That's why I asked you the question, because the exposition of the things is like it.
I just like to add depth.
Yeah, I love the depth. So
Second Amendment, everyone has a gun. All the gays are butt fucking and
having fun. Just
shooting in the sky.
Matter of fact, they might be butt fucking with bandoliers on. So that's crazy. What if that was like the only things I could think of? Yeah, dude, that's about it. Abortion.
What do you think about economics? Like, what do you think there should be like the federal tax on your money?
15%.
How much? 15%. Why 15? Out of curiosity.
I think 15% is a good number because 15 has always like resonated with me. It's like one of my favorite. No, I'm playing.
I was about to like.
No, I'm just kidding. No, because
15, because that's what the age of consent should be.
Dude, no, you want to get dark. When we were talking about what's a kid earlier, when you were like, what's a kid? 13, 14, 15? In my head, I was like, well, what if we were talking about sex?
Yeah, dude, look at human history. That's a number.
Elvis Presley, Jesus.
Dude, Shane Gillis has like a famous bit about that. He's like, could you guys imagine when they decided the age of consent? Like the first guy to give a number, and everyone's just like,
oh, Gary, you should.
Gentlemen, what should the age of consent be? And Gary goes in there, 13, and everyone's like, oh, dude, ew.
I remember that, dude. Yeah, no, Shane Gillis is hilarious, bro. My favorite one of his was when he was talking about the Vikings, and he was like, what did they pull up? And all the armies were gay. And he said, you see him pull up, he's like, oh, no, they're about to rape our wives and women. And then he say they let their flag down. It's like, fuck.
Oh, shit.
This is way worse.
Dude, his bit about Punch assassinating Biden.
Oh, dude.
He's like, he's so old and frail that he could be the first president you could punch assassinate.
Bro, and that's valid. That is valid. He tried to drop some existential shit on us when he exited, didn't he? Talking that JFK talking about some Biden. Did you see his little address to the nation at the end?
What, his farewell address?
Yeah, his farewell address.
Can I be honest with you?
Yeah.
I try my hardest to be as impartial as I can. When he started his farewell address with taking ownership of the ceasefire between Israel and Palestine, I couldn't. Because that farewell address is like in the annals of history. Like you could look at every president's farewell address. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they're not talking about like, don't get me wrong, they might snip in some like temporary issues but they usually tie it to like something that they see could be like a prolonged issue. Biden did that as well when he was talking about like the social media presence and the oligarchy and all that stuff. But then he leaves out so much information that there's always been an oligarchy ever since post-World War II. In fact, I would say that the oligarchy existed even stronger pre-World War I with the Gilded Age, with the Rockefellers and the J.P. Morgans and all these other people. Oh, it's like there's always been an aristocracy in America. Shut the fuck up. You're just mad that the aristocracy is now on the other side. That's what you're really mad at.
Yeah. So you did watch the whole thing.
Some of it.
Okay, I was gonna say, you literally just leaned into the point I was
I didn't watch all of it. I didn't watch all of it. I made it a certain way, and then I was like, dude, I was just getting more and more and more angry because I hate how politicians can just say whatever they want and like rewrite history in real time. Like he's saying things, and like I understand history, so I'm like, no, that's wrong. Like what you just said is incorrect.
So, in your opinion, do you think that wealth has directed our country, or in fact, politics in general?
Wealth has directed humanity.
Humanity, yeah. In general,
all of us.
Yeah.
Americans, Russians, whatever. Do you think, here's my thing when people start talking about like, oh, we don't want like business people to run this country and all that stuff. I was like, why? What makes Johnny Irish, the guy who can get, a bunch of votes, like he's a popularity contest, what makes him know anything about anything other than sociology?
So you think the Bilderberg Group is a good idea?
I want to be very careful how I word this. I want the best and brightest to be in positions where they're leading the nation. The best and brightest are a perspective based on what you yourself value. It might make sense to people that when I look at businessmen who understand economics, finance, monetary policy, that I would think that they are the best and brightest to run this ship because I understand that everything stems from economics. So you might say like this person is the better one for this position because of this reason. Fair. What I'm trying to say is I would not make a blanket statement and say that businessmen would be like better politicians, but what I am saying is they've already been very successful at one thing. Maybe they could be successful at two things.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Jared Kushner was the prime example of that. The best Secretary of State in my lifetime, had no experience with it, but an excellent businessman in negotiating and all this stuff. Abraham Accords. The Democrats like to shit on it because they're like, oh, well, you're basically buying peace. So, if I have to buy peace,
what's
great.
the money for?
But here's the beauty of it, though. Here's the beauty of it. It's the cycle of hatred and death.
Yeah.
If I can buy peace for a generation, if for 10 years no bombs are killing brown people in poor parts of the world, and famine is ended, and all this other stuff, for 10 years, you develop a generation of humans that only know peace and prosperity. These will be harder to militant. These will be harder to be created as martyrs. These will be harder to activate against one another. But if you create a world of military-industrial complex, of bombings, of shootings, of death and destruction, you're going to militarize people. You're going to activate them. You're going to give them something to die for instead of something to live for. So if I have to pay for peace for 10 years to create a generation of kids that only know full bellies and peace and prosperity and freedom, yes, I'll pay for that. I will have my tax dollars go to that instead of bombs. I'll have my tax dollars go to that.
We should have got you the Thanos glove.
Oh, yeah. I'd snap it. Why wouldn't you just double the amount of resources?
Dude, I love it.
Why do you got to half the amount of people? Bro, you're genocidal.
Dude, that's another reason why I love comic books. Just the motives and some of the stuff. You're just like, they're like, duh. Like when Superman puts on his glasses, he's not Superman anymore. You're just like, yeah, that's hilarious. They just went on for a
You put on glasses right now, but where'd Tivon go?
Who is this guy? Checks for his wallet.
That's the most racist thing said on the podcast. He said, who is this guy? Checks for his wallet.
I'm sorry. I told you, man. I take the racial humor.
I fucking love it,
man. I can prove it to you, man. Can I look at this while we're doing
Dude,
this?
yeah, but I don't know. Listen, here's what I'm gonna say. You can show me this, and if
it's just a text message, it's not a video.
No,
it's a text message. It's not a video or nothing.
Maybe
like
I'll read it, and if it's good, and we can post it on, send me a screenshot of it. And I don't know if this is gonna like cancel me.
That's from my boy.
From
Brady.
the bet, hey bro, why is?
Go ahead and click the picture, and just you can read the picture and see what it says.
My son goes by the name Phoenix, and my daughter has. Yeah, I can't post that. Woo, I'm more disappointed. Woo, baby. Woo, baby. The group chat is fire. Oh my God. Well, listen, we can't post that on the podcast.
Don't. But just
I almost said it too because I was reading it.
I just want you to know how fucked up my sense of humor actually gets when it comes to that, dude. Because I love everybody so much that now it's hilarious.
Dude, like, humor is the greatest way to find mutual ground because you can laugh about the shit that you hate. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You have two options of like looking at strife. You can either laugh it off and be like, hey, that fucking sucks, or I don't like this, or whatever, man, brush it off, or you can let it fester and sit and metastasize to a cancer.
And people who do that, low key, that's why you get to be the butt of the joke a little longer. It was kind of like with Dave and the transgenders. Honestly, I've been living with transgender people my entire life. Not like in close proximity, like living with like they're my family. But you ever seen that movie where Vin Rams played the big dude who dressed up in dresses, and he ended up taking care of that girl's daughter whose mom was a crackhead and everything like that? That story was sad to me, and it touched me. You know what I mean? Like, pause. That story was sad to me, and it was a deep story. And honestly, like, I don't think that movie gets enough credit because it was like this guy, you know, he accepted who he was. He was a drag queen or whatever it was, but it wasn't like that was the big part of the movie. Like, and that's why I think that the transgender community has been catching a lot of heat lately because they've been letting it fester. Like, they can't take a joke. They're like, oh man, the joke hurt so hard that we have to go ahead and respond to every comment. And I think once you start responding to every joke, it's just like, that's what makes it funnier, like your reaction to everything.
I think that coupled with the fact that their movement was hijacked.
Oh yeah, for political.
You know what I mean? Like whenever I got white people coming up to me talking about like civil rights, I'm like, relax. I want to hear this. I want to hear this from a black person. You know what I mean? Like if I have a white guy coming up to me talking about women's rights, I'm like, listen, dude, they're not fucking you. Move away.
Yeah.
Like let me talk to the woman about women's rights. I hate to say it like that, but I do. If a tall guy comes talking to me about short man's plight, I'm like, you motherfucker, you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. You can reach the cookie jar. You know what I mean?
Short kings, dog.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is like, you know, you got these like, you know, affluent white heterosexual people who up until 10 years ago were voting against gay marriage are now talking about how like they're all about progressive and like doing this, that, and whatever. And they knew what they were doing. They were trying to hijack that movement to push initiatives that they wanted. And the problem with that was, how long did it take for black people to get every single right that American, like a white person has in this country?
1970.
Longer than that.
Yeah, a little longer than that.
Yeah, a little longer than that.
That's like in the history book.
Yeah.
They say
so,
Jim Crow ended in 1960.
I would say as far as like maybe 35, 40 years ago, roughly speaking. Yeah. Okay. Now, was there still racism?
Yes.
Yes. Is there still racism today?
Yes.
Yes. Do you think that the amount of racism today is lesser than or equal to the amount of racism 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago? And where do you think that trajectory is going?
That's an interesting topic in itself because, you know, not to be, I don't even think devil's advocate is the right term, but like we were talking about with the information and with that phone and everything like that, and echo chambers, nowadays, like if you asked me this question 4 or 5 years ago, I would be like, it's down. Racism's nowhere near the level as it was back then. But now that everybody is getting these echo chambers and you can send around videos of black people beating up white people. You can just Google the shit. You know what I'm saying? But remember, black people were beating up Asian people at an alarming rate. You know what I mean? If I was a young 17, 15-year-old white guy, remember they had the whole thing with the torches and stuff like that, and I'm seeing this again in that echo chamber. It's hard for me to judge now because it's not lynchings. You know what I mean? It's not the acts of extreme violence that we've seen. Now it's more under wraps. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't say necessarily that the racism level isn't where it was then, because even then, just for it to get repealed, you know what I mean?
Racism objectively viewed in your lifestyle. Take the phone away from it.
Okay.
The amount of racism you, Tivon Taylor, have received at now versus 10 years ago versus 20 years ago. Do you feel like you're getting less or more racism directed towards you in your life?
Okay. Again, that question again, because I'm not getting violence brought on me. I can step on shadows and stuff like that. I can do it. The government is not involved. But when it comes to like directly talk, people will be like per capita. You know what I mean? And
I'm talking about the interactions.
I'm sorry. You did say take away the phone.
I'm talking about take away. I'm talking about people that interact
not
with
at all.
you.
Not even close.
Not even close.
Not even close.
Meaning the amount of racism is not as extreme. It's lesser
like my mom
than
went through or something like that.
No, not even your mom. You.
Me. No. I'm saying like comparably the racism as wise.
Once again, you. Tivon at 10 years old, at 20 years old, at 30 years old, what you were able to objectively see.
Oh, as my life has progressed, how has racism went? Oh, yeah, no.
Take the phone out of it.
Okay.
Take your mother out of it. The objective reality that you have observed in Illinois, Missouri, the Rust Belt, what have you noticed?
Okay, so I will say I have been the victim of what do you call it? Profiling. I've been profiled twice in my life, and it was open profiling, and this was when I was in my 20s. Okay, so of course, you know, you see a brother driving around with tinted windows and such, and automatically he's smoking weed. You know, you would be correct. But you didn't have to pull me over because you knew.
You are not selling, not profiling. He's like, they motherfucking profiled me and got it right. How dare you be so accurate?
You just pull up here and then you can't just know I have the weed. Like,
How dare you say something so truthful and hurtful?
Exactly. No, but like one time I actually was just getting into my friend Miles Quintal, shout out Ingle Creek. He's my next door neighbor. Hopping in the car with him and Connor Knox one time over at Shooters. This is in O'Fallon. Literally parked my truck, got out, got in their car, and then we took off to drive to go smoke some weed. And a cop saw me do that. He pulls them over and he's like, "What are you doing?" Now that I've watched all my YouTube videos and my rights and everything like that, and now that reasonable suspicion and stuff like that, back then I probably should have been like, "What the fuck do you mean? What am I doing?" You know what I mean? But we were just so.
I don't agree with that.
In what sense?
I forego some of my rights temporarily to diffuse a situation.
I forego.
If there's this cop and he's afraid for his life, and I get that his job is fucking hard, I'm willing to cede some ground. I don't want to immediately become confrontational.
Yeah.
Even as a white guy.
But do you see my point, though? Why did you pull me over? Because
he was profiling. 100%.
You know what I mean? Because I hopped into another car.
Maybe, and this is the same thing I say to like when we're talking about like sexual harassment with women. I was like, well, did you go to the environment with a bunch of hungry sexual guys wearing a dress that was very revealing? Does it make the act okay? No. But I also don't walk down a bad neighborhood with a pocket full of cash. Yeah. Why? Because that's the difference between intelligence and wisdom. I have the intellect to get that money, but I don't have the wisdom to keep it, right? Because I'm doing some stupid shit. It would be the same thing I would tell you is like, maybe don't get into a car and smoke some weed. Maybe get to the fucking destination for it, then get high. Then
no. We parked. So we're at Shooters. He's there waiting for me. I parked the car. I'm just hopping in with him.
Gotcha.
And we take off.
Okay.
Nothing's happened yet. No weed in the air, no nothing. I just literally hopped in the car with my friends. We could have just been driving the car up there and going somewhere. You know what I mean? Going to another bar. He didn't know what we were doing. He just saw a black dude hop in the car with these two young white kids and was like, "Oh, he's
definitely selling drugs or something."
You know what I mean? And that's my point. And then again, I had another instance to where it was a house party. You got a bunch of 20-year-olds.
Let me ask you this though, real quick. Do you think that was racism, or do you think that was like a product of like
cop work?
Not even cop work, but like
what he thought was being.
If I don't know anything about stop signs or anything like that, or like lights, right? And I'm just like being objective, okay? And I see that everyone stops at a red light and everyone goes on a green light and everyone slows down on a yellow light. How long until I realize like the natural order of things? Now, I'm not trying to say that the natural order of things is a black guy gets into a vehicle with white people that automatically correlates that. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is, how many times do you think he's had to see that, be that, before he now thinks that by proxy? Does that make sense?
I feel you.
So it's like...
So you're saying that all black people are drug dealers?
No, what I'm saying
I'm just kidding. No.
In my anecdotal history, it's been the white guys with the loudest shit. Let me put it that way.
We call them the plug. No, I understand what you mean because, again, you're saying...
It's not right, but I also don't fault him.
Yeah.
It's not right. That's bad cop work. I can separate the act not being
you're almost
right.
playing the devil's advocate with it. You're not trying to say.
No, I'm trying to get me his shoes.
Yeah, you're trying to make me understand.
Maybe I would do the same fucking thing.
Exactly. He might not be racist. He might have just seen something. He might have just been like, you know what? Why is he hopping in this car and why are they leaving?
By the way, if I see a bunch of white skinheads, okay, and they're following a black guy, I'm gonna profile. Maybe they're gonna fuck that black guy up. Now I'm following those white skinheads. Because they might be racist. They might be KKK members. They might be all these things. I'm profiling them the same way. But now it could possibly correlate to saving that black guy's life. Is profiling bad? Is profiling good? It's the perspective. It's the nuance. I think we will correlate what will happen with what has happened. That doesn't mean we are right or wrong. It just is.
Well.
So forgive me because you were profiled in this instance. And I'm sure that did not feel good. So I'm not trying to like...
But it didn't. But my point with that was gonna be that didn't like put me off white people or cops. Like one bad instance. That's what we were talking about. Like that's not what we were talking about. You were like, in your lifetime, have you experienced, or how has the experience from 10, 20 to 30 been with racism? And so I've only given you a few instances where I felt like racism had came into play. And the last one was gonna be where we were at a party. And I was probably 20 years old, and you know that these people are underage. You as cop, you come to bust the party. People are coming out, but in fact, you're sitting there running all the the black dudes' names through the system to make sure they don't.
See if they don't have any warrants or anything.
Exactly, and in fact, I don't necessarily.
And not the white people.
No, they definitely were getting the white people.
Okay,
but more of them had gotten away, if that makes sense. Like
Like they were slipping through the cracks.
I basically had Officer Wolfenstein or whatever his name is in O'Fallon like shove a taser in my face at 20 because I'm wearing sweatpants in my hippie gear and I don't have my wallet on me because I know that it was gonna fall. I just said I don't have my wallet on me. He shoves a taser in my face. He say you're about to get fucking tased in the face if you don't hand your ID.
That's bad cop.
And I'm like,
that's bad cop.
And this is before body cams. You know what I mean?
That's bad cop.
So, and I had a witness for it and everything. My ex-girlfriend at the time, she was actually walking out right behind me. He like jammed me up, slammed me into the doorway. And granted, I get you're tired and stuff like that, but you know, in the end, these are young people. These are 20-year-old people, and you might find an 18-year-old who's got a warrant or something like that, and it might be for something petty. So again, racism or not, like you can just tell in how their demeanor was towards the black individuals. And again, I think racism is such a touchy topic because again, it's not that I don't believe in it. I just don't believe in it. When I say I don't believe in it, I believe in there's just bad people. You know what I mean? Because there's, again, the nuances of every race. That's why racist humor is hilarious because we all do stereotypical things. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like you come to my house and you might hear the fire alarm chirp beep because I got to change the batteries. You know what I mean? Like sometimes
that's more tied towards women, not white people.
You know,
dude, I know like 6 girls that do that shit.
And you're like, Dave, like, are you gonna change that?
Like, no. The answer to that question is no. They won't.
Will you change it for me? Like so, and just I get it. We all have our own stereotypes, and we all kind of live up to some of our stereotypes. And I think racism. To answer your question, I know I kind of went off on that tangent. No, I wouldn't say that because I haven't had the experience watching my friend get dragged down the street with a shotgun in his mouth or something crazy like that. Like my mom could tell me stories like that. And again, we're not talking about her. We're talking about my experience. But we were also
that is a part of your experience.
Yeah. Like no, I've fortunately those are the most racist experiences that I've experienced in my life. Next to the next one probably being like this cop in the 7th grade getting me suspended because I didn't act fast enough for him. And that was like something petty that you could see that he wanted to do that thing. But then again, is that racism or is that somebody who was on a power trip? How do you know?
Well, and the reason I wanted to bring up race, because that was like the low-hanging fruit for you, a black man. But I guess I'm trying to correlate that back to, you know...
Banana? Don't you laugh at that.
How dare you? My favorite character on Super Smash Bros. Was Donkey Kong.
Oh, dude. He's such a hack.
He was a hack. Him and Yoshi. Anyway.
Kirby, too.
You lost me.
Cold,
all I'm trying to say is, you know, we as a society, as a species, are moving towards the right direction.
Yeah.
Okay. Naturally, because of the things that we were talking about earlier. We're like, it is in our best interest to live and let live and to not be cunts and all these other things. If you let it happen naturally, the vast majority of othering happened as a system of needs. Othering.
As in like...
I othered you. You are not human. You are not like me. You are this, that, or the other. You are something else from me.
Yes, sir.
That's always existed from human history, and that usually was a representation of scarcity. There was some resource scarcity, so for you to handle for the people that either looked like you or were, you know, of your same wealth or perhaps religion, whatever it was that you chose to tie people to you, you then would other people that were not necessarily within that group or confines.
Other.
And that was always a scarcity issue. The act of slavery was also a scarcity issue. Unfortunately for the slaves, the scarcity was labor.
Yeah.
That was the scarcity. But now we're entering this age of like true scarcity in America exists at our behest. We create scarcity through poor management and poor choices. Mm-hmm. We throw away more food than is consumed in America. Mm-hmm. Fun fact. We throw away more food than is consumed.
Look at the ocean.
Throw it away or used for compost or livestock feed. Meaning the amount of food that America produces, most of it doesn't even get eaten by humans. So like we don't have a scarcity of like resources the way previous generations did. And if you realize that once you start eliminating the hurdles for or once you start eliminating the walls that can naturally be built with someone, right? If you're hungry and I'm hungry and there's one sandwich, I'm fighting you for that sandwich, right? But if there's 2 sandwiches, well, now if I fight you for both sandwiches, well, I'm a greedy cunt. So it's like, hey, here's a sandwich, I'm a sandwich. What happens then is like there's 2 sandwiches, there's 2 white people and 1 black person.
Let's share our sandwich.
Well, that black person's different from us. We should each have a sandwich, and he doesn't get a sandwich. Or if it's two black people and one white person. Because I think racism can be done both ways.
Look at prison.
In our history, the whites have usually had more of the economic and socio factors to be the more powerful ones. But, I mean, black people have enslaved other black people. This is a thing.
The Dahomey were part of the slave trade.
Right now,
and they just got a fucking movie.
Right now, look at Uyghur Muslims in China. Literally slaves. There's more slaves today than ever in human history. That's a fact, okay? What I am trying to say is all of that stems from some sort of scarcity. Once you eliminate that scarcity, you eliminate the walls amongst people, and then othering someone is more difficult because they're doing the same shit you are. Tivon's working at the same place I'm working at, making the same amount of money, bitching about the same fucking shit. We're living the same lifestyle. And I honestly think that in America today, the real separating factor more than anything is not race, gender, sex, or anything. It's class. It's always been class. A black affluent person has more in common with a white affluent person than a poor black person. How do I know this? How many affluent black people live in poor black communities? The first thing they do is what?
Red man. That's the only one. That's the only one. That is the only one. Red man was on Cribs at the crib. That was a crazy one. But that's the only one.
But what will happen to someone in an urban community when he starts making a little bit of money? Where does he move? The suburbs.
Moves out.
He moves out.
He
Why?
moves out.
Because it's not a race thing. It's a class thing. And to take it back to like the trans movement and how it got hijacked by, white, powerful, heterosexual men that 10 years ago were voting against gay marriage, a lot of the strife that transgender people are now facing is because they were trying to be expedited. It took race hundreds of years to get to where it's at now. And there was always that counterbalance of people that were racist and ignorant and all these other things, constantly fighting against equality and all these other things for both the genders and the races, right? So women have their own fight.
Took sex longer.
Yeah. Well, they were ready about something. No, just
yeah, that's crazy.
If the gay community, if the transgender community, if all these communities wanted the same like avenues or the same respects, they need to go through change in the same motion where you can't force change. I don't want someone to not be racist because I told them not to be racist. I want them to not be racist because it's dumb to be racist. It's not in facts. There's no difference chemically, biologically from you or I. We are the same. We just look different. Melatonin in the skin, what have you. Transgender rights. Why shouldn't someone have the same rights as me? I can't find a reason if another human, right? But you have to let people come to that conclusion themselves. And unfortunately, true change, real change takes time. And if you try to rush it, if you force it on people, you will foster hatred. You will. You will.
Because they feel like you're
Racism was ended after the Civil War, Emancipation Proclamation. Some would say that the seeds of eliminating racism was in our founding documents, that all men are created equal, inalienable rights by God, right? Even in the founding documents, it was like, well, this is going to be a problem with the slaves, and George Washington and Benjamin Franklin and all these people knew that, but they were like, let's take care of Great Britain first. We'll worry about the slaves later. 16th president, Abraham Lincoln, had to worry about the slaves now. You know what I mean? But what I'm trying to say, to bring it back full circle, is you can't force change. If it took you guys 200 years to get where you're at, sorry guys, it might take at least 20, 30.
Yeah.
Give people time to come to the conclusion themselves, and I promise you that genuine fostering of love and admiration and peace will be far greater than anything that you try to force. And that's why I go back to my thing of like, if I have to buy peace for 10 years and let people come to the conclusion themselves that peace is the answer, I will do that. I would much rather my tax dollars go to that. I would much rather my tax dollars go to uniting and intermingling or cross homogenizing cultures and people. That's better for the trajectory of humanity. And don't force it. Let the best ideas come to the forefront. If black people are great at the eccentric and the art and all this other stuff, then let them lead and be pioneers in that field. And if Jews are really good with a certain aspect, and Asians are really good with a certain aspect, and white people are really good with a certain aspect, just like we don't try to let women do the things that men do and men do the things that women do, like their strengths and weaknesses, why are we doing that with races? Let everybody commingle, multicultural units. Let them strive at the things that they really are passionate about and they gravitate towards. Get the fuck out of their way. Let them be free and let the humanity as a species prosper for it. And maybe it's not the Asian that's the most at this or the black person that's the most at that. Let it happen. Let it foster. Let it happen on its own. Don't inhibit humans and watch what that they will create on their own. That's my, because that's what America did, right? We're the closest thing to that. We're not there yet, but we're the closest thing to that. And we seem to be the best and brightest nation in the world.
I think the 70s was a peak time in this country.
LSD, PCP,
we had
marijuana,
racism.
acid.
I feel like, we had racism, but we also had like Jimi Hendrix out here playing the national anthem with his teeth. He was getting all kinds of love. You know what I mean? Like, you could say racism was a thing, but at the same time, advancement was. I kind of look at I hate to say it this way, the de-evolution, I feel like, of my brothers and sisters inside of the black community. When I look
de-evolution?
De-evolution, man, when it comes to our entertainment and stuff like that. Like, I understand the appeal when it comes to, like,
culture?
Yeah, my own culture. I understand the appeal of trap music and everything like that, but you look at where we came from, like icons like James Brown and Al Green, and just how smooth and just well-dressed those guys were. Would you say that we're progressing culturally? I wouldn't.
What if I were to offer you a different paradigm? What if I told you that wasn't just susceptible to black people? What if I were to tell you that the culture of white people has also degraded?
And I wouldn't be able to speak on that. I would because
I think culture in general in America has degraded.
Yeah,
and
overall.
Unfortunately, it's kind of easier to like kind of separate and say like white people are this, black people are that. But what I'm trying to say is, I think if you look at all the races, everyone is doing worse in terms of like the role models, the value system, and all these other things. And that's because I hate to say it this way, we strayed away from, the white Anglo-Saxon norms of like, God, family, and all these other things. It's not isolated to just black people.
Yeah.
It's not isolated to just white people. Less white people are married than before.
But
less black people are married than before. More single parents, less fathers in homes, less responsibility taking care of like the family unit and the nuclear family and preparing for the next generation. It's not just isolated to the black people. Maybe you're more your perspective is more keen on that because that's your history.
Well, yeah,
but I don't think that's just you guys.
Just from, again, like you're saying, not just us. From my perspective, as you were saying, this is why I would even fathom to say something like that. It's just when you have examples like Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos.
Elon Musk is African.
You know what I mean? He is African.
He is African. He's a brother.
He is a brother. Him and Duplessis. You know what I'm saying?
The Dickus.
Somebody was like, the only one who could beat somebody up that bad was another brother. That's what he said. And I believed it. Drake is
talking about Adesanya?
Yeah, man. It hurt me to see him go out there and get choked out.
I like things like that, though. Don't you?
I love
this
it.
Unification of like the races and stuff like that.
I do, man.
I do too.
I do. And I think that
there's black Albanians now.
Do you know what's a beautiful picture? The picture of and this isn't just because she's hot. Charlize Theron crying when she was hugging Nelson Mandela after she won her Academy Award.
Oh, I didn't
it
see
was
that picture.
A beautiful thing, bro. Like, you wouldn't think that, again, we were talking, well, not us, but people talk about how, maybe heartless business people are. It was how heartless business people are, and just a lot of people with money and stuff like that. Like, bro, she understood in the moment, like, bro, she's getting a hug, an actual hero, like Nelson Mandela, like, and it was for South Africa. She said, you've done this for South Africa, and I think that's an example people should live by. Like, people are like, oh, man, white South Africans aren't Africans because they moved there through apartheid and shit like that. And I'm just like, I mean, even if that's how you feel, dude, like, I'm part of the country. Like, they're part of the country. Like, they live there. That is their home. You know what I mean? And for Nelson Mandela to be able to sit there and, like, genuinely congratulate her and tell her, you've done a good thing for South Africa, I thought that was awesome.
Beautiful.
It's a beautiful moment. And that alone, like...
Do you think, let me ask you a question. Do you think that the advancement of a race, because I said earlier that, like, I don't want to hear the criticisms of something from people that aren't necessarily in that group, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, if you're a man talking about feminism, I don't want to hear it from you, I want to hear it from a woman. But perhaps I'm incorrect in that thought based on what you just said, because I actually do agree that, like, if a white person is coming in to a black community and actively trying to help that community, or if a black person is going to, like, the Appalachian Mountains and helping out poor white people, isn't that just a good thing? Like, shouldn't we?
That's just a good thing.
Yeah, like,
you got to see where people's hearts are at. Because earlier I agreed with you too when you were like, when you said that, you were like, I don't want to hear talk about a different perspective. That's absolutely right. I don't think you should own the limelight. That doesn't mean that you should stop doing good things. Whenever you do good things for somebody, it shouldn't be for attention. You
know what I think the difference is? Now that I'm thinking about it objectively, if you're coming at it from a criticism without a solution, shut the fuck up.
Yeah. Hey.
If I'm white and I'm talking about, like, racism's a problem. Okay, well then fix it. Well, it's systemic. Okay, well then shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Let the black people talk about it. But if you're coming in and saying, I'm going to lobby this, and this politician to change this, and this legislation in this, and this area, well then suddenly we're like, all right, come on in.
And that's why I couldn't just be off with people who are just immediately labeling Trump a racist, because it was just like, I mean, he did have Kanye West in the White House to talk about. And granted, that conversation went nowhere. Like, if you watch
Donald Trump got criminal justice reform done. Donald Trump.
He freed Kodak Black. He freed
All I'm saying is, if you're going to call him a racist, fair, give me some supporting evidence, because I have supporting evidence that says he's not.
Yeah. And look at what, again, and this is why it's hard for me to say that I'm a Democrat or a Republican. Like, you know, your boy voted yes on that major crime bill. Reagan, everybody talks about Ronald Reagan being the devil, 666, but he only had, what was it like? They gave us numbers, and it was in the hundreds of thousands of how many people he had in prison at that time. And it was like either like between 600,000 to 900,000.
It's insane.
When Bill Clinton took office, he turned the number up from hundreds of thousands to like 2.98 million. You know what I'm saying? Like million.
Private prisons.
And black people loved Bill Clinton.
For-profit prisons should be illegal.
Yeah, that's
Should be
slavery.
illegal.
It's slavery.
Yeah, it's enslavement, yes.
Yeah. And I think if you're going to own a private prison, I need solid evidence that everyone in there is a pedophile. Those are, you know, even though, you know, people were like, oh, well, the chemicals, they can't control it. I fuck those guys and fuck pedophiles.
Isn't it even crazy that even in like a prison system or whatever, they have to separate the child molesters and stuff like that from like the hardened criminals? Because even in that like subsect of humans, of like people that are like, you know, murderers, killers, rapists and stuff like that,
Kids are off limits.
There's something to be said about those that prey on the innocent children. That even the worst among us are like, hey,
you gotta die.
That's fucked up. That's crazy, isn't it? Isn't it so, like, nothing more self-evident than if like the worst among you are even on board with you on that.
You know, as a father and being a father,
Tivon, if something happens to my daughter, I'm going to prison.
Crash out.
I'm
Crash
going to
out.
take justice in
Guaranteed.
my own hands. I'm telling you right now. I'm not waiting for a court. I'm not waiting for any of that shit. Oh, what happened? Okay, cool. Baby, I love you. This is where the money's at. Here's the password to the wallet. I'll see you in 30 years.
That's the dude who should have been on the quarter. Sacagawea's story was just sad. This one's uplifting. Oh boy, who shot that guy who, the karate instructor who was messing with his son? He was acting like he was on the telephone.
Cain Oh, I know what you're
Turn around.
Cain Velasquez.
Cain Velasquez too.
The kid was molesting his son.
Shot at him and his daddy.
Yeah.
Fuck your daddy.
Yeah. Dude, if you fuck with my daughter, scorched earth.
Crash out.
Scorched earth.
I'm with Cain all
Don't
the way.
be in the way.
I don't think he should even have went to jail for
Is
a
that,
day.
is that good or bad, do you think? Do you think that there should ever be a case where you have a Luigi Mangione who kind of takes into consideration or takes the justice system into his own hands?
When it comes to children, yes. I think children are really special. When it comes to healthcare and something that's so big that you shoot this guy with a family, his kid has to grow up without him as a dad because of something that he's going to be replaced for the very next day. No. Because that guy, they had that meeting anyway. Even after he got shot, the meeting went on without him.
You talking about the investor call that he was going for? Because
Yeah.
they were all going to get indicted for insider trading.
They heard he died and they were on the call talking about rest in peace to him anyway. So, you know what I mean? But when it comes to like children and like solid evidence, I'll go on the X app all day and look up pedophiles getting trapped. There was one where this guy got busted over the head with a pumpkin.
Well, that's what Dustin Lampros is doing now. He's doing
Shout
like
out Dustin
561
Lampros.
PC, and he's like
Keep
catching
up the
these
God's
guys
work,
and,
man.
Yeah,
Keep
what's
up the
crazy
Lord's
to me is
work.
how prevalent it is. That's the real crazy thing.
Good.
Have you ever done that CaseNet or like you can look like you can Google search like the amount of
And see who's around you.
sexual offenders. So that's the thing, right? So sexual offenders and child sexual offense are two different things, but they'll at least in the state of Missouri, they have them labeled as like a blue dot and a red dot, right? And you can either be one or the other, right? Because like if you're a sexual offender that doesn't involve children, then you're a sexual offender. But if it involves minors in any way, shape, or form, you're a sexual offender and a child predator, right? So like you get a different color. And the amount of dots in general, so sexual offenders and child predators was astronomical. The amount of red dots, which was sexual offenders, greatly outnumbered the amount of blue dots, which I was, you know, if you're gonna be that guy, like at least like
Shane Gillis?
yeah, right. Right? 13, yeah. But
You know what that
the amount of blue dots shocked me.
Yeah.
It shocked me. There's a guy down the street, and then you have to turn a left or whatever. But I mean, like, I walk with my daughter. It's very possible that this guy walks his dog or whatever and sees me with my daughter.
Let's leave him a lottery ticket. Say yes to come.
No,
here,
I'll tell you
pick it
what.
up.
I know what he looks like. I know what he looks like. Let me put it to you that way. I'm glad that that information is available to me now. You know what I mean? And
As it should be.
yeah, as it should be.
You know what I mean? I think that's another part that the government has come through for us, you know. And we were talking earlier about how come this distrust between the government and the people has happened. More stuff like that would gain trust. And I think that's what transparency, dude. And
Sunlight is the
something
greatest
we
disinfectant.
care about. You know what I mean? Like and the main thing we care about is our children. You know what I mean? So yeah, to answer your question, yeah, I think that stuff is super necessary, and I hope that you know, I don't want anyone to get set up, because there was just a case of this guy who got set up on Tinder. I was watching it on Snapchat or whatever, and they set this random soldier up and beat him up in the basement, and he didn't even like try to talk to a girl or anyone even underage, but they claim they did it because they're underage. You see how people will take something good and then turn it into something bad, and it's just like, you people ruined it.
Perversion of various things has always existed.
Yeah, the perversion of justice has been one of the biggest upsets in as society and men as a norm, people as a norm. Just like you said earlier, like life is not so black and white; it's shades of gray. And when
anything of substance is.
Anything.
There are some things that are black and white. I don't think murder is good, but murdering a murderer.
Murdering someone who tried to murder you.
Yeah, well, self-defense is a
Self-defense.
Self-defense is a different. I will choose me over you every day of the
Every
week.
day of the week. Sorry, like I'm not just gonna let it happen. Thieving, you know what I'm saying? Stealing. People are like, stealing is bad. It doesn't matter who you are. Well, how close to death was he? You know what I mean? Like, if this guy literally was out here foaming out the mouth and he was just like, I don't know, and he stole a Subway, all right, let him go.
Yeah, I think the nuance is there, right? I think home invasion constitutes death. Like, if you break into my home to steal something, maybe you're not even armed, I reserve the right to kill you.
Yeah.
And I will not think twice about it, because I don't know.
And that's a safety thing. You've taken the risk.
But if you're at like Subway stealing a sandwich,
yeah, we're not gonna have the police pull
man's
up
gotta
and
eat.
shoot you.
Man's gotta
You know
eat. You know what I mean?
Like, don't need to pull up with your guns drawn and be like, this guy just shoplifted from Walmart.
That's why I think it's bold when these people try to like break into homes. I'm like, boy, you have no idea what could be on the other side of that door.
That's suicidal.
Yeah.
That's a suicidal act.
Yeah.
You break
But then
into
you see
someone's
these
home.
people that are like, you know, he's just trying to get some money. Like, you didn't have to kill him. I'm like,
That's
you're
true.
right. You're right. He was just trying to get some
But
money.
I did have to kill him.
But I didn't know that. No, but I didn't know that. I did not know that.
He could have came in there and
He could have been strapped, willing to kill me.
And especially, again, going back to it, if my kids are home, you're cooked.
Yeah.
I'm not taking it. You know, it's one thing if I'm home alone, you know what I mean? And then, you know, we get into a tussle. Maybe I don't feel like shooting you because that's everything like that.
Or if you figure out that he's unarmed or whatever.
Figure out he's unarmed or something. Yeah, exactly. Even if I figured out that you're unarmed and my kids are home, I'm going to murder you. You're dead. Like, it doesn't matter. You could find a weapon. Let one of my kids come down here and you touch them. You know what I mean? Knock them over. Cause them to get a scrape on their head. You whisper or you breathe your bad breath in their face. That's already too much intrusion on someone's life who I've vowed to protect over fully.
Nurture.
You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, no, I'm all for that, man. But when it comes down to like, I keep going back to Luigi, man. I don't know how I feel. Like, we said that those people are a little more messed up than Luigi. The people who are saying that.
I don't think Luigi is. I understand Luigi more than I understand the people that are cheering him on. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I get Luigi. I don't understand the masses that are like, yeah, that guy should have died. Really? Yeah. Really?
Yeah.
He should have died? Do you realize how little he has impact in like the grand scheme of things? Like the CEO maybe makes anywhere between 4 or 5 big decisions in a company of that size a year.
Yeah.
Do you think he's the one mandating the quotas? No. What he's doing is he's putting people in place. You want to know who you should really be mad at? The adjudicator that declined that claim. Because they're the ones that looked at it, did the due diligence, said no. Mm-hmm. The CEO doesn't give a fuck about you. Now, do they create the culture? Yes. But that's easy to change. So you want to know how you change that? Stop using United.
Yeah.
Do some due diligence as a person and say, oh, United has 38%. They have the highest decline rate for insurance claims.
I'm gonna get
Don't have them.
Yeah.
Don't have them. Go to somebody else. The market at work. You don't shoot a man in his fucking head.
Yeah.
You don't. And if we ever get to a society where we think that that's acceptable, it's a dark day. Because, and this is where I'll end with the last, I'm going to say this and then one more question for you. We live in a society where we are empowered to make that change through our dollar or through our vote. If this was like communist Albania, or if this was another country where you didn't have these things, then you know what? A bullet in the head might be the only way you can make change.
Unfortunately.
But in America, you have so many other ways to do it that I can't justify it.
Yeah.
I wanted to end with this. I'm sure you had an idea of how this conversation was going to go prior to you coming in. I wanted to explain to you why I didn't ask you any questions about fighting.
Nice.
And why I think you might be the first fighter that I do this with. And that is, everyone that's going to watch this because you are tagged in something or that you share something already knows you're a fighter. My goal, I think, going forward with the podcast, and I'd be interested in what you think, is I'm not going to bring on fighters anymore to talk about fighting unless it's like a natural progression of the conversation. I would rather get to know them. I got to know a lot about you today. I already know that you're a fighter. I already know that you went pro. We know some things about each other. I didn't know that you were Second Amendment. I didn't know that you were for this, against that, and all these other things. I didn't know that you were, into some of the things that I'm into in terms of the nerd culture and all that other stuff. I find that more fascinating. Do you think I'm right or wrong in that approach?
I think that's a great approach, man. Because, people say that the best thing, or not the best thing, but one thing a fighter has to be is marketable. So if anything, giving them a platform to be able to express some of their views to where people will be able to relate with them or be able to understand, like, hey, he's not just like a meathead or a testo guy, or he's unstable because he likes to fight. People, they think
we are these things, but these aren't only these things.
We are, and I won't lie. When I first started out fighting, I wasn't in necessarily the best place mentally. I did it because I was thinking that, like, this is a good way to let nature kind of take repentance on me for, again, being human. Like you said earlier, you said, I've been envious, I've been jealous, I've been all those things. I have too, man. I've stolen, I've cheated, I've lied to people I care about. One of my biggest regrets still to this day is I didn't tell Quan that I found his $400 when he used to live with me. And then I never did. And then I told him like a while back. And it's still one of my biggest regrets because I'm not a thief. I don't like to steal from people. Even though that wasn't directly stealing, when I found the money, I didn't tell him I found the money. I think that you asking the fighters questions about about finding out who they are makes the story more interesting. It's adding context, what's the word? It's character development. Yeah. And in the fight game, fighting is really a show of your character. You know what I mean? You might not go out there and win the fight, but did you give up in the fight? Did you quit in the fight? Did you go to the corner while you were losing round 1, round 2, round 3 and look defeated? Did you ask your coach to get you out of there? You know what I mean? Or did you go ahead and just take it on the chin, clap your hands at the end and say, I love this shit. I'm going to come back for more.
On to the next.
I think that you can find out from a conversation how full of shit people are in every aspect of their life. And that's basic psychology. Your responses to certain things, your certain tics. If you lie and you look to the right and stuff like that, that's why it's important to not always be that guy that asks me about fighting, because there's always going to be somebody on the internet like, you see Tivon's dumbass opinion on overhooks versus underhooks and turning hips, and did you see his opinion on this? There's always going to be those guys out there who's like, oh, man, he's not experienced enough for it. That was a dumb take on that. But when it comes down to, like, personality and person building, I think that's a dope approach, man. And I think I hope you do continue that, because there's more to fighters, if anything, personality-wise and controversy-wise, the stuff going on in their life that is way more interesting than the actual fight. You know what I mean? Training is harder than the fight always.
I also think that there's also like the subsect of journalism and like MMA media that's going to ask you those questions already. Yeah. And I don't need to do their job. I want to do my job. Yeah. You're going to get...
You're good at your job,
before your next fight, thank you.
You're real good at your job.
You should have watched the first episode, because it's been like, I'm sure your first fight, you were a certain level, and then your 5th fight, and then your 10th fight, and then your 15th fight. That's kind of how I do the podcast now. Like, now this will be episode 70. And I feel like, or 69 or 70, but I feel like I'm getting into the rep of things now. Now this is starting to feeling like sparring kind of thing. Like, yeah, I know how to move my head. I know how to kind of navigate this. But it's more of like, I try to think to myself, like, what would I want as a podcast guest? Do I want to be asked? Because I watched your episode with Zach and Pat, right? And I really wanted to not ask you the same questions. That's the other thing. It's like Zach and Pat did a good job of asking you the questions they asked you. So I want to ask you different questions. I don't want to have the same conversation twice. I think they did a great job. I'll do a great job in this one, and then both people can watch both and get more of you. Like an hour and a half with them, 2 hours with me. Now they got 3.5 hours with you. Instead of if they watch this one or that one, they're gonna get the same shit. So you choose either or.
And
Does that make sense?
That's a testament to even more of your professionalism, man. The fact that you would actually consider looking at another podcast, another person's product, just to make this product even better. That's research. You know what I'm saying? Involved in repetition is in fact your research. Like, what can I do to make this better? Like, even when I practice my jab, you know what I'm saying? On my YouTube, how so-and-so is there? GSP's jab, you know what I mean? Roy Jones' jab. Like, everybody's jab is different. The fact that you would go and look at their show, make sure that you're not sitting here asking, okay, well, I don't want to repeat question this guy. You know what I mean? Let's find out and get a little deeper into the substance of what Tivon is really about. That's professional. That's John Jones level with the talk show. Man. You know, he researches his opponents, man. And
I don't know if it's that much, but I guess all I'm trying to do
I wouldn't call them opponents because, like you said, the well's big enough.
Yeah, dude. Zach, I've had Zach on. I'm gonna have Pat on. I've been on their show. I genuinely, fighting had this underlying scarcity to it because we were all trying to get to the same boat, right? The boat being the UFC, and you felt like if anybody else was your weight class, like, you know, you had the swivel, like I was a bantamweight, so like every 135 could get it, right? This world is completely different because now it's like the well is so vast, like there's no scarcity. It's artificial if you believe it, and there is a way where like everybody can kind of like, if they do a better job and get some of the guests that I have, then they'll only help you more. And then if you're a better guest for them, you'll help them more. And then if I watch that and I change it, then you can benefit them, and then you can benefit me, and then I can benefit you. And it's just like this circular of like everyone is better off for having done it, right? They're better off for having the podcast. You're better off for being on the podcast, multiple podcasts, not getting asked the same shit, a different conversation. I wouldn't say like theirs was deeper or not, you know, it's just a different conversation. But my goal is also to make it like you will now have 3.5 hours at least of you having in-depth conversations versus an hour and a half of the same conversation.
Man, we talked about the Big Bang.
Yeah. God, race, government.
I can't wait to rewatch it.
We didn't even talk about dick size.
I was going to tell you, I can't stop staring at your cock, bro. He's just over there looking at me. Are you a Mizzou fan?
Stop.
Are you a Mizzou fan?
What? Oh, yeah.
That cock. What'd you think I meant?
Tivon Taylor, brother. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me on, brother.
Fuck, man, that was good.